slightly different thing. So you will not definitely find GST 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 type will not be there. But I'm sure that it has got its own niche audits, and we have tried something different, and we are going to try one more different program today. So as all of us move to always mobile and other things, data security and privacy becomes a very, very crucial issue. So in fact, today we are having the first program will be on that my good friend Chandrasekhar. He's a chartered accountant, but has created niche for himself and is focusing more on these. In fact, his brother is focusing, he was chartered accountant apart from practice. Now he is focusing into live drama. In today's world where the drama is dying, and he has ensured that he's having some different dramas. Because he comes from a chartered accountant family. Now currently he is heading the IT of Y&R. He has qualified himself in CISA, some of them by only CISSP. I think I myself had to go to find out auditors, so that means CDCP, GDPR, lead auditors. I think one thing I can definitely observe is all of them seem to be related to something to system. That is what he has created a unique niche for him. And in fact, I still remember student days where his set is one of the very, very good promising set. And most of them will come 15 minutes before the classes. I'm not surprised today it was 15-20 minutes before the start of the program. As they used to come ask some brilliant questions. I thought he will come to IT, income tax, my field, given the interest he has shown. But he decided to go to a different IT field. I'm very happy to welcome Chandrasekhar. So give him a big very happy. So I have two persons who will be once again conferred some honorary chartered accountant, because whenever I introduce some speakers, generally Rahman and team believes that they must be chartered accountants. So unfortunately or fortunately, the two gentlemen have got nothing to do with the CA, even though they have to do with finance. Sundraarama and Ravichandran. So there you have Sathish. So both of them are from Barclays, and they will be talking on investment valuation of financial instruments. And it basically comes with a chemical engineering background, and his certificate quantitative finance 2011. He's worked in IT for high frequency trading apps and risk management applications. He's worked for Credit Suisse and now is currently with Barclays in finance. So he's been working for evaluation of control function responsible for ensuring integrity of the balance sheet for our trading and market vehicles. In fact, I was actually trying their wealth management head for the program for quite some time, but unfortunately he could not make it because of the SEBI prohibits them from addressing any public programs. In fact, he's a very good friend of mine, but he says I cannot address any programs because for which I had to take an approval from SEBI. Then I found even they had to take an internal approval to come. So thank you very much for taking a lot of steps to come here, and hope that members will be benefited by that. So Sathish has joined in 2014. It's a bond IPV team leader for the product control valuation. So he's located in Chennai after about 8 years in UK. Almost all of it spending in valuation roles across multiple investment banks. The most recent one was with JP Morgan, where he was overseeing the security products valuation. Sathish also had a stint with Toyota Kirloskar India and Corpus. He also holds an engineering degree and MBA in finance. Members, my small request is that I have nothing against your GST attending. After all, we have to do that also. But last month we had a program where somebody from Ford, an international man who served all over the world, has come here to audit. So likewise, each and every program we are trying something unique. Somewhere there is nothing wrong. We have to definitely learn. Being myself being in the taxation field last 30 years, I have no hesitation in saying that. But still, I think these kind of programs, I wish you all spread, because of the fact that something different also we should learn. And always, to motivate the institute team becomes slightly difficult because of the fact they say that, sir, we have 6 or 15 days before, should we have to have this program or something like that. Even though eventually they end up in getting more program on the day of the program, but just motivating the institute have become difficult. For them also look at GST 10 has 100 people. I think they also believe at the end of the day, In a film, we always say that why Rajinikanth and Vijay is doing a film which is not different. But the only problem is, if they do a different film, are we going to go and appreciate them? Then only they will do a different film. We can't expect them to do a film other than masala film unless we're going to encourage it. And similarly, my humble request to you is that if you feel, which I'm very confident that the last program, after the program was over, everybody is waiting. Somebody from Trivandrum was fighting with me. Why this program is not similar program is held in Trivandrum? So why it is happening only in Chennai? And definitely more and more programs like this can be organized. But the only point is that at least on the day before, I think the institute staff needs a motivation, the comfort level. Otherwise, what happens, like just imagine for a moment, you are a business head and you always prefer to do a program which, when you just send the first SMS, if 100 people register, now why you should do a different program? So it's just a very, I sincerely, if you really like the program, you just need honest feedback. And if this program like, you spread, you are the best marketing because nobody else can market these programs. And institute, and I once again thank DC for giving me an opportunity to organize a program like this, because when I was co-opted as a member for this committee, he said, Suresh, I want some different programs. I am on Madurai. Can you do something? This is the 4th program we are doing. And I thank you very much. But unfortunately, because he's standing the elections, he cannot come over here. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your support. And I just take this opportunity to just do this. Oh, sorry. So we'll have the motor song. Then, due to some reason, I have to give the momentum to the speakers, and then I have to leave because I injured my leg, so I can't stand for long. So if I can't be there for the vote of thanks. So first, I just all of you to stand for Mr. Motor. First, I request Vidya Chartered Accountant to hand over the matter to speaker on personal data protection. We are confident that the speakers will do an excellent job, therefore you can clap much before they start also.
Giving a tips before the event starts.
So I request Mr. Ibrahim, Chartered Accountant, to hand over the moment to Mr. Sathish. I should explain. I don't take this. It's a very interesting.
what
His name is Sundraarama Ravichandran. So in fact, so I'm sure with the name Rama itself is beauty. So I think he has got a beauty in his name. So and it's very interesting, Ravichandran. So I think it's a very unique name. Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir. Yes, sir.
So what you give, you get back, as TG Suresh has envisaged. I now call upon CA Kumar to come and hand over a small memento to TG Suresh.
This time you can take it.
Yes.
So I request Chandrasekhar to take over.
Very good morning to all of you here. I would like to thank Mr. TG Suresh and Mr. PC for this opportunity to be here with you today. So there are, is it fine now? So I think every one of us at some point in time would have felt that some bit of information pertaining to us, right, for reasons right or wrong, is being shared with someone else. And I think a scenario where most of us realize that is when you get a call, maybe from an insurance company or with due regards from a bank or from any other entity, right, which says that are you interested in something, and then you realize that maybe you have checked the product online, or maybe you have done an investment with another entity and you get a call from a different entity. Basically, what we have gone through and continue to go through is what is today known as sale of information or sale of data. The regulators, through various means, have been trying to curb this process. For example, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, they brought in a do not disturb or do not call registry, right, which to the best of my knowledge is non-functional, and because we seem to get more calls subsequent to that exercise. For some strange reason, 3-4 years back, all of us started to talk about privacy. Right? While culturally, the Europeans and the Americans have always been tending towards a lot of importance to privacy. But in India, culturally, we have never attached much of importance to privacy. Right? Like somebody said, we have better things to bother about. And on the contrary, we feel happy if somebody knows something about us, right? Which is antithesis to this whole process of data protection. And if we are not well, then we would like to tell a few people that we are not well so that we feel better. And abroad, right, nobody really wants others to know that they are not well. So essentially, the concept of privacy picked up quite fast in Europe and US, essentially not because of the regulations, because people valued privacy for many reasons, right? Operational, statistical, merely the numbers, and what works in the West or what works in US does not work. But for some strange reason, when social media started to become popular, right, and voluntarily we started to give information online, we suddenly realized privacy is a risk. Somebody can put together this piece of information and misuse that information. And more often than not, we are the only people to blame, because you voluntarily go online and give your first name, last name, date of birth, and favorite food, and that's the same combination that you use for your bank's password. So essentially, it's the people who have been using social media to give out sensitive information and then come back and say my privacy is lost. In this backdrop, we had a major I would say, effort by the government of India in the form of unique identification. The objective of this exercise of Aadhaar or the unique identification, at least on paper, the objective is very good. But for all wrong reasons, it has been in the news for the last 6 months to 1 year. And where suddenly people say sensitive data is in the public domain. What we don't realize is most of this information is already in the public domain. Privacy is on the premise that people should not know what they don't have access to. But if your bank account particulars or your name and address is already in the public domain, or who you are is already in the public domain, there is no question of privacy. People call it vested interest, people call it political motives, but Aadhaar brought privacy to the forefront. Unfortunately, people today associate privacy with Aadhaar and social media. But what we need to realize is privacy is a bigger issue. It's not just related to Aadhaar or related to what social media does. In this backdrop, the European Union adopted what is known today as the GDPR, where they said, we will do away with the old legislations on privacy and we will bring about a new legislation on privacy. They implemented GDPR about maybe 6 months back or a year back, and like it or not, the ramifications of that legislation was felt even in our country, because that regulation requires that if they have to outsource data processing to any other country, and India has been surviving on outsourcing as a major business line. The European Union said that we will not permit data to move out of the European Union unless the other country also has similar legislation. So people ask, why was this bill brought in at such a hurry? Right? In fact, this has been in works for now almost 10 years, 6 years minimum. But what pushed it is not Aadhaar, like the press says, it's GDPR. The Indian businesses went to the government and said, look, if you don't have a privacy law, we are going to lose business. Aadhaar happens to be just what the press reads into. The reality is, if you don't have this bill, right, it's not about individual privacy, it's about businesses losing opportunities. In this context, there were a lot of committees which were formed, which went into this, and they came up with a lot of what they call as draft bills. Unfortunately, due to political circumstances, none of this even came to the position of being tabled in the parliament. This government, given the majority that they have, they at least decided that we will table a bill, let's see how it goes from there. And as we see today, we have a bill which is still not law, but we have a bill which says Personal Data Protection Bill 2018. This committee was called the Sri Krishna Committee, and it was headed by a retired Chief Justice who has done a lot of groundwork on what is really required in terms of privacy in the Indian context. There is definitely an influence from GDPR, there is definitely an influence from the US legislations, but what is good about this bill at this stage is that it has been tuned to meet the Indian requirements. And today this bill is called as the Personal Data Protection Bill 2018. The committee which went into this was given a single objective. They were given a lot of objectives, but the core objective of this whole exercise was to unlock the digital economy while keeping data of citizens secure and protected. Now it's like saying, I'll use internet but it has to be secure. Or it's like saying, I'll drive on a public road but I should not meet with an accident. Essentially, it looks like conflicting objectives. Right? You and I use internet because it's cheap, easily available and accessible, but the moment you do sensitive transactions or card payments or any other sensitive data transmission over the internet and something goes wrong, you blame the internet. You say, my data was breached, somebody stole my credit card details, somebody stole my password. But what we don't realize is, we use a medium which is not meant to be secure. You are traveling on a public road and you say there should be no accidents. You may drive safely, but you have nothing to control what others are doing on the public road. Now look at this objective. The government told this committee, look, there is a lot of value in data. We need to unlock them. At the same time, we need to ensure that the personally identifiable information pertaining to individuals is also protected in the process. It's like two divergent objectives to be achieved by the same legislation. Now, if the legislation clamps down on data, then businesses will come and say, you're not allowing us to do business. If they open up the data, then they are going to say privacy is lost. So with this objective, the committee has done an excellent job in coming up with at least a draft bill, which to me is a major change in the way corporates will work. And like somebody wanted to know, if it's still a bill, why do we discuss it at this stage? The kind of changes that this bill is envisaging is going to take us at least 2-3 years to achieve. So it's the right time for corporates and individuals to at least start talking about it. So this act is called the Personal Data Protection Act 2018. It applies to the whole of the country. Right, like most legislations, except maybe the state of Jammu and Kashmir, but this legislation applies to the whole of the country. And what's interesting is, this legislation, when it really becomes a law, will also apply to acts or events outside the country. Right? Very few legislations have this kind of a power, or what we today know as what we call as extraterritorial jurisdiction. A sovereign government of a place, right, an elected government of a place, right, can frame laws which apply to the boundaries or physical boundaries of a territory. But here is a legislation, just like the Information Technology Act, right, which will apply to acts or events even if they happen outside the country. For the simple reason, like today people say internet has no boundaries. And you have really no boundaries. There is no time frame. There is nothing like day and night. It is always on, events keep happening. And in that scenario, the government found it right to ensure that this legislation has an extraterritorial jurisdiction. Now the next question that people ask is it really something that you can make it work? Can you go to any other state and say, look, I have a legislation which says if something goes wrong and it pertains to something in India, I will proceed against the person in another country. The first step is to have a law which has this provision. The next step is to see whether you can make it work. There are two legislations as of date related to information security or data protection. One is this and another is the Information Technology Act. Both have taken upon themselves what we call as extraterritorial jurisdiction. So it says it shall apply to data processed outside the country if it pertains to data principles within the country. The European Union called people or about whom data is being collected as data subjects. The Indian legislation calls them as data principles. And essentially they are referring to people like you and me about whom the information is being collected. So there are two scenarios. If it's processed in India, straight away, and if it's processed in India, straight away it's applicable. And you have no choice, and it has to be covered. There are no questions asked if it pertains to people residing in India. If it's processed outside the country, but still it pertains to people in India or data principles in India, or it's used for marketing efforts, right? Like you see, you go online and you make a purchase and somebody is tracking what kind of purchases you are making. Now, all these big corporates like Google, Amazon have always been getting away saying that we are not present in India or this activity is not being done in India but is done in US. So the Indian laws don't apply. Of late, most of these legislations ensure that these kind of loopholes are plugged. So they say if it pertains to something processed about people in India for whatever reason, and most often it's going to be marketing or profiling as they call it, customer profiling or marketing or maybe behavior analysis or pattern analysis about how you purchase, when you purchase, preferences. And so the law now says if the business is carried on in India, it's squarely applicable. Or you are offering activity, you are doing an activity of offering goods and services to principals in India. Please note the company need not be present in India, but the people with whom you are dealing or for whom this service is being offered or goods are being sold are present in our country. The last one is what I think most of these big companies are doing, what we call as profiling. Essentially, based on electronic transactions that you and I do, they know more about our preferences than you and I do. Google Maps is something that people generally refer to when they talk about this. Or you go online and search for a laptop and you get an advertisement about a laptop straight away in your inbox. And these are classic examples of how they profile customers. And whether we really know that they are being profiled or we don't know that they are being profiled today is squarely covered under this section. One interesting thing is this bill tries to move out some of the data out of the purview of this legislation or what they call as anonymized data. And as we go forward, we'll see how this makes a lot of sense to each one of us as individuals and people in corporates and what kind of changes we are going to see because of this. So the law says, right, if it is X or Y and you're able to identify whatever happens with that person, you are covered. But if you have a mechanism of anonymizing, right, for example, let's say some of us go to a lab or to a medical center and get a blood test or some test. Now, whether the person who is really carrying out the test needs to know the name of the person, or is it enough if they are given a medical record number? And from henceforth, they will know the person only by the medical record number and not by their name or any other details. And this is a form of de-identification, where you try to isolate the person from the activity, but at some point in time you can again merge and say that this medical record number pertains to X or Y or Z. So the law says, as far as possible, corporates should try and do what is called as anonymization. But now this has various subparts to it. How do you really do this? Right? Maybe a bank can say, we'll go with customer ID. And if somebody walks into the bank, right, the bank can say, the person in the branch need not know the name or anything else, they just need to know the customer ID. And maybe a hospital can say, we'll do it with the medical record number. Each of these institutions will have to develop a mechanism of anonymizing this data if they want to stay away from the provisions of this legislation, or if they want to say that this legislation substantively does not apply to us. Anonymized broadly refers to an irreversible process of transforming or converting the personal data to a form that the data principle cannot be. Now the law has broken it down into multiple things. How do you really achieve it? What is reversible? What is irreversible? What is partly covered? Right? They have dealt with in the legislation. Method of anonymization is going to be notified as well formally at once what we call as a Data Protection Authority of India is going to be appointed. At least now it sounds as if it is some theoretical exercise, but as you go through you realize this authority is going to be extremely powerful authority. Right? The Data Protection Authority is going to be somewhat or an institution or a department of the government. I don't know how they will perform it. Most likely it will be under the Ministry of Information Technology or some similar institution. This authority is going to be an extremely powerful authority.
Like consumer.
Like the consumer protection, but this is going to be a little bit more deeper. And because essentially anybody within this country processing any personal information is going to be authority. Which means it's like straight away this authority has power to issue directions to almost any entity anywhere in the country. Right? So that's what is at least envisaged currently as the Data Protection Authority of India. This legislation broadly talks about 3 levels. We are not going into greater detail, but broadly it says there are people called as data principals. For better understanding, you and I are data principals because we voluntarily share information with organizations or we provide information as part of some business process or consumer interaction with the business. So most of us will fall under the category called as data principal. The European Union prefers to call this a data subject. Then comes a role called data fiduciary. European Union calls it data controller. Basically, a fiduciary, as the name suggests, is somebody who, in good trust, you have given information. And now, when you walk into an hospital and they ask you all sorts of medical record or your past history of medical record, and you provide them, obviously you don't ask them, can you sign a confidentiality clause and tell me that you will not share this data with someone else? Even if the law does not require, what is the belief? Good faith or trust. So the Indian legislation has not used the word control, they have used the word fiduciary. Basically they are saying consumers share information in good faith and hopefully that organization will not misuse it or not use it for purposes other than the purpose for which it is provided for. So they call these organizations as data fiduciary, or the key organizations who decide what kind of processing your data will undergo. They call them as data fiduciary. Now what is the next step? Most of these organizations have outsourced data processing, which is very visible. An insurance company today no longer prints insurance policies. It's outsourced. Banks don't print credit card or debit card. It's outsourced. Lab reports are not printed by the lab. Medical labs, they are printed by someone else. Which means essentially we have at least 2 or 3 more levels whom the law wants to call them as data processors. Now what's the fundamental difference between a fiduciary and a processor? Fiduciary decides what kind of processing will take place. Processor simply goes by what the fiduciary says. So let's say an insurance company has a tie-up with a printer, where the printer is told at the end of the day we'll send you this file, print all these policies or claims or whatever it is and dispatch it to this address. Now the insurance company is a fiduciary, the outsourced entity is a processor. Bank tells a card printer, debit card printing or PIN printing or whatever, a check printing agency, look, I'll give you the customer details at the end of the day, tomorrow morning you have to print all this and dispatch it. The bank will be a fiduciary, the sub-processor or the processor, the next level will be called as a processor. Now why is this important? Within the country, you have both fiduciaries and processors. Now look at a scenario where an entity in US or Europe has outsourced some data processing to India, then the Indian entity may not be a fiduciary, but definitely they will be a processor. So the government wants to ensure that we have legislations which are at par with what is there in the other countries. So there are 3 levels: principal, fiduciary and processor. This becomes interesting as we go forward. The government wants to be very careful with both of these entities, but still they say the fiduciary will be ultimately responsible. Okay, we can have a contract with a sub-processor or an outsourced entity saying if something goes wrong, you have a penal clause. That's a contractual agreement. But the law says, even if something goes wrong with the processor, the fiduciary will be held responsible. And the penalties are phenomenally heavy this time around. So this has to be dealt with carefully. Data as such in Indian context, the bill wants to classify it into 2 broad categories: personal data, sensitive personal data. Now why this classification? This classification is important because the level of controls or the level of detailing is going to vary. Now, as per the current bill, though this is under a lot of what they call as criticism from the public, criticism from the industry, the government is waiting to receive all of them before they fine-tune it. But as it stands today, data relating to natural persons alone is covered. So the essence of this legislation is corporate information is not covered, personal information is covered. Which means, if it's business sensitive, it need not directly be personal information. For example, let us say you have pricing information. Let us say you have engineering, drawing and design. And that will not be covered under this law because it does not pertain to natural persons. The European Union has also taken a similar stand. What is the logic? If business loses information which is sensitive to them and it has got nothing to do with people, they have contracts and other laws to protect their interests. And for example, let's say a manufacturing company has outsourced engineering, drawing and design, or a component manufacturer, a sub-processor, and he misuses that engineering, drawing and design, sells it to competition, or even better, he manufactures the product himself. Now, that corporate cannot take protection under this law because this is only to deal with personal information. An engineering, drawing and design or a product specification or pricing information will not fall under the category of personal data. So this entire legislation will only protect the interest of living people. Right? In Europe, they have gone one step ahead and they have case laws. What happens if a person dies? Right? Can the information pertaining to that person be protected under this legislation? Because here the word used is natural persons. The moment a person dies, can his estate or somebody still claim protection under this? Anyway, the law has to evolve. In India, we are at least 5-6 years behind on this, so it will take us some time to even reach that stage. Then what is sensitive personal information? The law says within the personal information category, there are certain things which will have to be absolutely protected, and this is where it becomes interesting. It says passwords and financial data. The moment we talk about data protection, most people think it does not apply to their organization because they are not dealing with sensitive personal information. Where we are making a mistake is first we have to look at the definition of what is personal information or what is sensitive personal information. Just read through this and tell me whether any corporate will get excluded or not. Passwords, financial data, health data, official identifier, biometric data, caste, religious or political belief. Every corporate will have some bit of this information. Maybe the HR has everything about your personal information. Maybe your finance and accounts or payroll department has something to do with financial information. Maybe the marketing department has something to do with your preferences. Right? Which means essentially, this legislation has a very wide impact. Right? In the initial sense, like I said, most corporates believe that we don't deal with people directly. What about your own employees? Right? What about your customers? So essentially, once it becomes law, it will actually cover every single corporate. The only variance will be on volume. Maybe somebody handles more personal information, somebody handles less personal information. Maybe somebody handles more sensitive personal information, maybe somebody handles less sensitive personal information. So these are the two, as of date, these are the two classifications in this sense: personal data, sensitive personal data. The implication is corporates are now going to be segmented into whether they are going to handle this, the first one or the second one or both. And the moment you say somebody is handling sensitive personal data, this law becomes very rigorous. You need to register yourself with the Data Protection Authority of India. And you need to get yourself audited. And that's where opportunities are, that's where risk is also. So these are the two classifications as of date. There is a thought that some of this may undergo changes. Obviously there is lobby. Obviously, the moment any bill is placed, there is a lobbying process which starts because each industry wants to protect its own interest. So there's a lobby from the BPO industry now, and because they will get squarely hit, something like this comes into picture straight away. Right? Obviously, there's a lobby from the financial institutions. And if you look at financial institutions, if not anything, they have a lot of financial data. Right? If you look at insurance, and they may say we don't deal much with financial data of the customer, but we have everything else. Because for them to evaluate risk of a person to be insured or already insured, they need some basic information. So this is.
So the last couple of things, caste, religious or potential belief, is it exactly the fit of European or American law or is it specifically for India?
As of date, we don't have an answer to this. This question is whether caste, religious beliefs, or whatever political affiliation. The question is whether as a company you collect this kind of information or as an organization you collect this kind of information. If you do collect, this legislation says that will fall under sensitive personal data. Now, like I said, why this has been brought in, and we will only know when it becomes operationalized, when they come up with what is the kind of the final classification of what constitutes sensitive. But I would like to believe that this is more for organizations which collect this kind of information, maybe for them to profile the candidate before he or she joins the organization. So, like somebody was mentioning, a background check company will get hit there. And they can say we don't really deal with customer information, but so long as you have this on your record, most of these background check companies do social media profiling. Right? They do drug tests, they do in addition to the medical examination. And because they don't want to employ somebody whose thoughts or processes are different from the culture of the organization. But we'll have to wait for this. This is just a list that we have in front of us. But even if you remove them, all of the other things are there. Like you go log your fingerprint to enter access a building, that's biometric. Right? So essentially, we'll have to wait. But this looks very detailed as of now.
Well, in your definition of sensitive data, it looks like more of an inclusive definition. What we currently have is inclusive definition.
There is a last line which I have not put it up on the slide where it says the government is free to add or subtract anything from this. This is just a bill, so we have not gone into more detailing, but the government is very clear. Right? They say this is as we start. As it evolves, they will definitely add more or subtract from this list.
So, which means that there will be a schedule which has
Currently, they have not put it up as part of a schedule. Currently, it is part of the act. Right? Maybe once they have the Data Protection Authority of India, and each corporate appoints what is called as a data protection officer.
Right.
Maybe this will pick up. But as of date, this is the list we have. They are also careful because they don't want to really agitate a set of people or agitate a set of segment of an industry. A fiduciary is a person who determines the purpose and means of processing personal data. And here is where corporates have to be careful because within the category of fiduciary, they have something called as a significant data fiduciary. Now, who is a data fiduciary, who is a significant data fiduciary is going to vary based on a few parameters. They say volume of data processed, sensitivity of the data processed. What happens if this data is misused? Will the impact on the public be large enough? Then you might get categorized as a significant data fiduciary. The moment a corporate is classified as a significant data fiduciary, the compliance requirements are very heavy, which, like I said, is both a risk and an opportunity. Now, who is going to fall under this category? As of date, we don't know. But broad sense is, most of these large institutions will fall under this category. BPOs, large BPOs, banks, insurance companies, mutual funds, hospitals. Sense is that most of them will be classified under significant data fiduciary, given volume of personal data, the risk of something going wrong and the impact on the public is going to be very high. So the law says fiduciaries will have two segments, regular and a significant data fiduciary. Power to notify will lie with the Data Protection Authority of India. Registration of significant data fiduciary is mandatory. Right? And as we will see, this has significant implications. So we have seen a fiduciary, a processor, a data principal. We have seen what is personal data, and we have seen what is sensitive personal. This is where a little bit of thought is required by each of the corporates on what kind of processing you do with information. Now there are corporates who say we collect data but we don't process data. Or we collect data and we pass it on but we don't really process information. But under this legislation, collection of data itself tantamounts to processing. So here the term processing is not really converting data from raw form to a final output or what we know as data processing. Here they say collect, store, transmit, and unless you are absolutely neutral, like let us say an internet service provider receives a mail, forwards a mail to another mailbox, maybe the government will exempt him saying you don't decide the origin of data, you don't decide the destination of data, you are just a pass through. Maybe you will be exempt for that kind of a data alone. But let's say a BPO says data is not mine. Somebody gives me data, I just reformat it and send it across, it will still be categorized as a process. And here the law says there has to be a basis for processing. And this is the starting point for them to really curtail what kind of information a corporate can have, and they collect, can they not collect. Now they come to what is called as limitations on processing. Or what is the rationale why you have even collected this information. So that's very interesting because the law says currently we need to respect the person's autonomy, we you need to have a clear basis with consent of the person. And this is where a major change is now seen. Where most of us, when you go to an online Gmail or any other Google or any other product, it shows you a lot of things, and at the end of it you press I agree. And most of us would have never read through most of them. Right? Like somebody did a research and they found out Google's privacy policy is close to some 150 pages or something if you print it. So essentially nobody really reads through. And in most of these cases, these boxes come with pre-ticked boxes. Now, under the European legislation and Indian legislation, pre-ticking a box is not permitted. So they say consent has to be an affirmative consent. It cannot be taken for granted. And this has been widely contested by all these big organizations. Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, everybody has contested this, but the law is what it is today. That you cannot have a consent which says it's automatically taken for granted and you just need to press I agree. That's going to make a major change to corporates.
So you said a collection of data itself tantamount to processing. So anybody on earth like connects a business
Absolutely.
kind of gets covered.
Absolutely. As we go forward, there is another slide which says this law is not just for corporates, it's for you and me also. Right? So essentially, the law envisages that primarily it will be corporates and big organizations who do personal data, but what happens to others, right, who also have sensitive personal information. That is also covered under this legislation. Consent has to be meaningful, there has to be a notice given, and this is where most corporates have to do a lot of rework. What is this notice? You clearly tell the customers, employees, or whomever you deal with, what is the objective with which you are collecting this information? Where are you going to process this information? How long are you going to store this information? And a very important clause, which again most of these big companies are fighting it out, right to forget. Okay. You can go and tell a corporate, delete all the information about me that you have with me. Right to be forgotten. Right. That's a case law which is ongoing. There are a lot of cases ongoing, not much in India, but in Europe and US, where people have written to social media saying, look, all traces about me that you have anywhere, you need to delete. Now the question is whether you have a right to be forgotten. And it started with a very unique case somewhere in South America. There is something wrong with a particular organization or an entity which happened several years back. But unfortunately, I think it was a person, he was arrested for some reason and then he was released or whatever. And the newspaper article, it was on the web. Even today, when you go and search about that person, the fact that he was arrested comes up first. So he was the first person to file a case in the court saying there is a right to be forgotten. On this net, on the social media, I have a right to tell that company, please delete all the information about me so long as it does not harm anybody or does not adversely affect somebody. Now that provision is being brought into this legislation. It looks simple, but it is going to be a very, very difficult task. Why? Today personal data is stored across so many different places. You have hard copies, you have a data backup in your disaster recovery site, you have backup in a tape, and it's a humongous effort.
All the telecom companies, when they wanted to forget the Aadhaar numbers and go for a new identification.
There's a difference between deleting and forgetting. What the government of India has said is Aadhaar need not be a basis for authentication for a few entities. So they are saying wherever you have Aadhaar data, if it's not required, please go ahead and delete it. That's easily said than done. And if not anything, you would have given a copy of your Aadhaar card duly signed. Right? That has been scanned somewhere. And the data will be in at least 2 or 3 multiple databases for different reasons. It will be on tapes. It's not easy to go and say delete something. That is deletion. Right to forget means every information about that person will be wiped off. Other data is being deleted by a few entities. Right to forget means everything about you will get deleted, wiped off. That's a difficult exercise. So the law says there has to be few limitations on why a corporate can collect information. There has to be a purpose limitation, meaning why. Why are you collecting this information? And to the extent required alone, you can collect this information. Right? They say don't collect more information than what is required. Like somebody was asking, if a corporate asks you, what is your political ideology? Now a data principal can go and ask a corporate, what has that got to do with my job? Or you go online and you want to create an account for yourself with the online retailer. And the retailer asks you, what is your religion? You can go and ask him, what has religion got to do with my purchasing or not purchasing from your website? So that right is now given to the data principal, and that obligation is put on the corporate to say, don't collect information more than what is required. So that is what they say, collection limitation and purpose limitation. I think the first one will make a lot of sense because a corporate cannot share data with anybody else because that's not linked to the purpose for which they collect this information. Notice to be given at the time of collection of personal data, notice to be very elaborate. Most of the corporates are reworking on this already. It covers purpose, categories of data being collected, details of the data protection officer, right to withdraw consent. Incidentally, this is becoming a business opportunity. There is already a thought which says, like you have a online aggregator. Now somebody has come up with a thought, we'll put up a website where we'll only handle consent of people. So you have given one consent to Amazon, you have given one consent to your bank, you have given another consent to another organization. Now somebody says, why don't we launch a website only to track consent? Each time you want to go and make a change, you need not go to individual entities to make a change. You can go to this portal and change your consent, and individual entities will pick your consent from that portal. It's a huge business opportunity. Simple, plain forms, electronic forms, and onloaded on a particular web page. And corporates will subscribe to it. Customers will access only a single portal. They foresee this to be a very, very, very large business opportunity. What is that? Managing consent. Purely non-financial information. At the same time, very important for corporates because it's like they have aggregated all the consent of different people in a single web page. That's consent management. Source of data collection, period of retention. Fiduciaries are accountable for acts of the processors also, which means outsourcing does not absolve you of your responsibility. So we have seen some of these already. Fair and reasonable processing, purpose limitation, notice accountability, data quality, ensuring that if there is wrong data, you can write to the company saying correct my information. Collection limitation and lawful processing. What can be the grounds for processing personal data? The law insists on consent today, at least for sensitive personal data, it is a must. At the same time, they realized there can be certain circumstances where consent cannot be obtained. Let us say there is a law enforcement activity, or let us say there is a medical emergency. And there you can go and ask the person whether I had a consent to share your medical information with the hospital. And there is an accident. So the law says, under certain circumstances, consent need not be obtained. The consent need not be as stringent, but for most of the activities, you need to first obtain consent. And this is where our rights start. And this, I personally believe, that either as a professional or as an individual, we maybe have an opportunity now to decide what people do with our information. Right to obtain confirmation about the data being handled, right to seek correction of data. I'm sure you would have gone through this pain a lot of times where one alphabet in your name is not all right, and because of that you lose some important time or some registration does not go through. And now there is a right to get your data corrected under the law. Right to data portability. This is also very interesting. You can write to a corporate saying, you have all this information about me, I'm switching services from you to another service provider. Please transfer all my data to the other service provider. Which means you have an account in the bank and you want to open an account with another bank, you need not provide all the details again. You can go to this bank and say, please transfer all the data that you have with me, relating to me to another organization. Right to data portal. This was brought in more to help the telecom service providers. And we have seen in the past some telecom companies shut down and all subscribers had to migrate to other subscribers, other service providers. So there these kind of things help. I don't know whether many of us are aware. In medical insurance there is portability already. We rarely use it. IRDA has provided portability for medical insurance. You can transfer your medical insurance from one insurance to another. They are already there in place. Very rarely used. There and all these kind of things will again help you.
Excuse me, the medical portability is twice in a lifetime, right? Or is it unlimited?
I am not from insurance background, but I only know that there is portability available for medical
I was
insurance.
told it is only twice, not switch. Not sure about mobile.
I'm not aware, but there is portability. My purpose is more from the data point of view. And I am not from the insurance background, so I am not the business. Right to be forgotten. This is creating a lot of problems to corporates because if they give a wrong declaration that they have deleted all the data about you, and tomorrow the data surfaces somewhere, they are going to face a very heavy fine. And right to seek compensation. This is also interesting. If somebody sells your personal information, today you have a right to seek compensation. And at least this is something that can deter at least a few organizations from selling information. Transparency and accountability measures, they say privacy is by design, not by by luck. They say you have to design and privacy into your system. Transparency in personal data processing, security safeguards, data protection impact assessment, a huge professional opportunity. Now corporates, at least most of the corporates to the extent that we have seen, have never done a data privacy impact assessment because they don't have even a list of sensitive data that they are handling. The reason is it is so diverse that they don't even know that some of the data that they are handling is personal or sensitive in nature. So most of the corporates will undergo this exercise of data identification, data classification, privacy impact assessments, and a huge professional opportunity. Record keeping, data audits, not financial audits, these are data audits. Appointment of a data protection officer, right? Grievance redressal mechanism. This is also very interesting. The law envisages that you have to respond to a customer within 30 days, resolve that issue within 30 days. Otherwise, again, the penalty is very high. Restrictions on cross-border transactions. And the government has come up with certain restrictions. I think it's clause 41 of the bill proposed act, where they say why or what purpose you need to transfer data outside the country. There has to be a defined purpose. It has to get the clearance of the central government. I'm not sure how many of you are aware here. As we speak, data in a server within the country. The banking industry is undergoing a major challenge now. The Reserve Bank of India has said all transaction processing information relating to payment cards, anything to do with your payment instruments or transactions will have to be necessarily stored within the country, so long as it pertains to transactions within the country. If you do a swift transfer, data goes outside the country, it's okay. But if you make a payment within the country, the data should reside within the country, which to us looks like common sense, but surprisingly most of the data is not within our country. And it will be very interesting to note that each time you swipe a card and you type a PIN, more often than not, the authentication happens in Australia or Singapore. And most of these payment gateways have preferred to retain their servers outside the country. Now the government has put its foot down and said you need to locate the data within the country. One school of thought is with computers and networks, it doesn't make sense where data gets stored. That's not the real objective. A lot of these big companies, including Visa, MasterCard, Amazon, they fought with the government, saying, why are you insisting that data should get stored within the country? In fact, one of them went to the government and said, there is no good data center in India. And the government said, we have several good data centers in India, you better set it up here or you shut shop in India. The reason is not what the press sees. The reason is the next generation of warfare is going to be fought using internet. It's not going to be fought on land, it's not going to be fought in air, it's not going to be fought in water. The US commander of the US Army has said, till now we have fought war on land, air and water. The next warfare is going to be fought on the internet, where one country will fight against another country by trying to restrict access to sensitive information, where they will hold countries to ransom by manipulating or curtailing their access to sensitive data. So the government believes some of the sensitive data should reside physically within the territory of India. And this is already started a humongous exercise. They have gone to the extent of saying if they don't do this, you will lose the right to do business in country. The first one to be hit by this was BlackBerry. Right? When they said we will not install a server to decrypt data within the country, the government put its foot down. Now it's Visa, MasterCard, Amazon, and they are finding it extremely difficult. Some of them have already started their operations in India, put up the servers in India, they're starting to store data within the country. It looks simple, but achieving this is going to be a huge exercise. Some service providers who will not meet the deadline are likely to lose their license to operate. Incidentally, the deadline is end of December. If they don't do it by December, many of these payment card, the POS, and e-com transactions may come to a halt. This is a greater challenge because most of these organizations have migrated to cloud. Where at Amazon cloud, though now they say India data center, they say Singapore data center. But 3 years back, 4 years back, you go and ask Amazon, or for that matter, any one of the service providers, Azure, where their data is, they'll say it's in a data center, but they'll never tell you where the data center is. But now the law says it has to be located physically within the territory. If it is sensitive or critical personal data, it can be processed only in a server located in India. To me, this is probably the most important section of the law because this will operationalize the law. We have had legislations in our country where they try to appoint an authority to operationalize legislation, and it has failed in most cases. For example, how many of us really know about 43A and 72A of the Information Technology Act? 2000. In 2018, and most corporates have never bothered about what is 43A and 72A of the Information Technology Act, while it applies to everybody. But the reason why nobody was bothered was the penalty and fines was something like 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, which was more like a revenue generation for the government rather than a deterrent for the corporate. So if you go and ask a large corporate like a telecom service provider to pay a fine of 1 lakh, he may probably pay it in advance. Because for him it doesn't make sense to comply with the legislation. But now look at the provision. It says if a data fiduciary is found violating, the fine can be 5 crores or 2% of their worldwide turnover. Right? Which is significant. And in Europe already there are cases which have sought such compensations from the social media companies where the percentage is even higher. So we are talking about a fine of 5 crores, or 2% of the global turnover of the last completed financial year for each offense, for each violation. Now, for the first time, you have a law where the penalty provision is really acting as a deterrent, not as a revenue collection for the government. It is this. We need not, in my view, don't need to operationalize the law. This is enough. When you send out 2 notices to 2 corporates and collect this kind of money, other corporates will automatically fall in. It's very interesting. This is modeled on the GDPR. GDPR has 4%, 3%, so Indian government has started at 2%. Action relating to data breach, data protection impact assessment, audits, appointment, if you violate any of them, they can go up to 5 crores or 2% of the global.
When they talk about violation, they are talking about a type of violation or each transaction of violation.
Each instance of violation. So for example, if you fail to appoint a data protection officer, you can be penalized worse. If you have sensitive personal data and you have not done a privacy impact assessment, you can be fined again. And that's the real challenge. If if it's 5 crores notice, they will pay 5 crores every time, or at least up to 5 crores every time, or 2% of the annual turnover. That is the real data. Contravention by data fiduciary, 15 crores or 4% of the global turnover. Now somebody asked why global turnover? And this global turnover is meant for social media organizations. Global turnover is meant for search engines. Because if you tell them Indian turnover, they will happily pay. But if you tell them global turnover, now the volume becomes significant. So this is truly a deterrent effect, or this will truly push corporates to comply with this legislation. Right? Like I see, right, if this really brought into action, this will cause major problems. This is where each of us is also covered, not corporates. If you obtain personal data, disclose personal data, transfer personal data, sell or offer to sell personal data, imprisonment up to 3 years and or fine up to 2 lakhs. So for the first time, they are moved out of corporates and they say anybody handling personal data will also be covered. If it's sensitive personal data, it's 5 years imprisonment or fine up to 3 lakhs. Because of this, section 43 and 72A, like I said, anyway nobody really bothered. So that provision is now dropped. And that was there for a long time. Amendment 2000, I think amended in 2008. From 2008 onwards it is there, but nobody really bothered about it. Now the government thought it's a better way to bring it into the data privacy law. So it's gone out of the Information Technology Act. 43A and 72A stands omitted once the law comes into picture. So what are the actionables for corporates? As a summary, broad actionables. Right? Review mechanisms will have to be spruced up on what kind of personal data one collects. Revise the format and mode of obtaining consent. Right? You can no longer say, I agree straight away or pre-tick the boxes, all of them are gone. Understand how to handle the rights of the data principles. Under the Information Technology Act, again a provision which was never enforced. The law said you have to have a chief grievance officer. Actually, I have never seen any corporate appointing a chief grievance officer under the Information Technology Act. But here you have to have a data privacy officer to whom you can write, anybody can write and say, I am X, do you hold any data about me in your organization? If so, whether it is correct, wrong, right, delete it, hold it, changes, forget about data about me, and write to the DPO. So we have to be careful about the rights of the data principle. Limit storage of personal data and localize. Under this legislation, they say at least one copy should be in India. For banks, they have said it should be only in India. This legislation says at least have one copy of the data in India. For banks, Reserve Bank has said it has to be stored only in India. So that's a major change.
Have they mentioned any periodicity of maintenance?
Data cannot be stored outside the country. There is no question of maintenance if it is sensitive personal information. If it's personal data, the law says at least one functional copy should be available within the country. It's obviously live copy. You cannot say I have data pertaining to the last 5 years and I don't have current data. It will face the penalty. Spruce up data security mechanisms. Treat data breach as a very significant incident. I'm not sure how many of you knew Jubilant Foodworks. Like they're better known for Domino's. Like 2-3 years back, they had a major data breach. It was in the press for a brief period of time, and like most other things, public memory is short, and we forgot about it. What did they lose? They lost all their customer information. And in the press note, they said, we don't have credit card details stored on our database. Now, what is the kind of customer information they have? They know your name, right? And you get a birthday greetings from them, so which means they know your address, they know your date of birth, and this is about 70-80% of the data required to reset your password to your internet banking. Now, this is where we call it as data aggregation. You share some information with a shop or a corporate, and they think it is part of the information. Now, people who are motivated only are looking for pieces of information and ultimately they are going to do a aggregation. Even date of birth can become sensitive because you use your date of birth to reset accounts, reset passwords elsewhere. It does not find nothing really happened about it because you don't have data privacy. But now all of this will undergo a change. What are the opportunities for professionals both in corporates and in practice? I would think the first thing is to sensitize corporates on the impact of this legislation. And it has to be top down, there is no other choice. Contribute to the process of mapping what is sensitive data, collection, process, transfer, disclose, storage and disposal. Be a part of the exercise of privacy impact assessment, data protection impact assessment. It's no longer an IT problem, it's everybody's issue. Help implement better information security controls, perform independent audits, and maybe some of you might also get nominated as a data protection officer. Right? This is a very sensitive role to play. Right? So this is what we thought we'll share with you today. Right? Thank you for a very patient hearing.
Every company is required to store some kind of employee-related data, and to pay that most of the payroll softwares are on the cloud. The data centers doesn't sit in India. Now, do everybody need to keep a live copy in the corporates?
Correct. So the question is whether all the corporates who deal with employees' information, they may not be a BPO, but they may be just an organization which stores employee data. The way to approach this entire legislation is first to fit your corporate into the scheme of things. Are you just a data fiduciary or a processor, or are you a significant data fiduciary? Once you firm that up, then the next question comes is what kind of data you handle. Do you handle personal data? Do you handle sensitive personal data? Then the next thing is to check whether you can anonymize the data. If you are able to anonymize the data, most of the operative provisions of this act don't apply to you. If you are not able to anonymize the data and you deal with sensitive data, you will apply the provisions. Maybe a data privacy officer and audit may not apply to everybody straight away unless you are a significant data fiduciary. But we will have to wait for the Data Protection Authority of India to come into force because they are going to define who you are. Where do you fit in? My sense is they give you broad guidelines. If your turnover is so much, or if you handle so many records, or if you do this kind of processing, maybe you fall under significant data fiduciary. No, you may fall under just a data fiduciary. I don't decide on processing, I just process data, maybe you fall under a processing. So that is the first step. So generically, it is not going to be possible for somebody to say whether you have to store, you don't need to store, you have to go through the processes.
So, what are the responses to the data processing? Like India being a huge market for shared services environment. So,
data processors are almost required to do everything that a data fiduciary does, except first you have to define whether you are really a processor or a fiduciary. For example, let's say there is a BPO which processes payroll for some other corporates in India from abroad. The first question, like we said, was do you decide what kind of processing takes place, or you just process on behalf of someone else? And if you process on behalf of someone else, then you are a processor and everybody else is a fiduciary. Under the law, the fiduciary is supposed to define what the processor can do and what he cannot do. But the level of controls, the law says, will have to be equivalent to that of a fiduciary.
equivalent responsibility.
Equivalent responsibility. European Union, the companies in European Union who have a lot of data processing activities in India handled by BPOs, they have already started issuing guidelines. They have said, if there are 10 people involved in data processing related to personal data, have you done a background check on them? Do you store data locally? Do they see the name of the employees or it is anonymous? For example, we have a client who deals with travel claims. So, the client has some employees who travel, end of it they upload their bills. And this entity sitting out of India manages the claims processing. So the first step they did was dealing the employee name from the data. The moment it is anonymized, the risk is this. But if you are not anonymized and they have access to personal data, you are as much responsible as the fiduciary, except the law will first get hold of the fiduciary, it will not get hold of the processor.
Can fiduciary say that I will not be able to delete data because I need it as a reference?
The law has given certain exemptions where data can be retained, but not in all cases.
Purpose.
Purpose, that too not for every corporate, not for all reasons. And for example, they say if there is a requirement by the government to retain, for example, you can't go and tell the income tax department they will all my past data. Right? So something like that. But interestingly, that's a curious variance in this legislation. The Information Technology Act sought to keep the government entities out. This law brings the government entities also under the ambit of this. So if a private entity is classified as a fiduciary, a government entity can also be classified as a fiduciary, except the retention requirements and all of other things are slightly different from it. But a corporate under normal circumstances cannot deny deletion unless you have a case to showcase why deletion is not possible or why deletion is not recommended. Public interest, they have some grounds. Public interest, interest of the state, interest of the state government, or interest of the legislature. There are some journalistic purposes. Either they have some exemptions, but it's not very wide.
When somebody calls for deletion of a data or asks for forgetting of the data, that data is if that data is a part of our financial data,
Everywhere it has to be deleted.
If we start deleting those data out of our financial system,
You don't need to delete. Let's say I have done a financial transaction with your organization. Right? Remove my name, date of birth, or address, replace it with some identifier. Personal data alone can be deleted.
What happens to the existing? For example, if the government is acting under fiduciary capacity, the public interest, there can be.
Public interest is exempt from this. But what is public interest has been defined under the law.
For example, sale of sugary items, they create a public health problem. Can the data be used by?
For profiling under the law, there are two broad indicators for profiling. First thing is they say profiling for children is prohibited. So certain data fiduciaries have been classified. I didn't bring it into this presentation because I was not sure whether it is relevant. There are certain data fiduciaries who have been classified as guardian data fiduciaries. So who is a guardian data fiduciary? Anybody who has information about minors is called a guardian data fiduciary. Now most organizations will think we don't have any information about minors. Take a bank. They have accounts relating to minors, they become a guardian data fiduciary. That's one part. But there are other entities. Let's say a school has a facility where students can log in and take tests online. They have a portal where you can log in and do some exercise online. Now that website becomes a guardian data fiduciary. Or there is a corporate which says we will distribute free toothbrushes and paste, or we'll do a free medical check for all the students in your school. Now they have data about minors, that institution becomes a guardian data fiduciary. If you are classified as a guardian data fiduciary, then the requirement is very stringent. No profiling, nothing can be done unless it's required for medical reasons. For example, there is a set of people who collect information about children to help them do better psychologically or to help them do better physically, and they have some ailment associated with them, then it's exempt. So guardian data fiduciaries, one category. All other companies, general data fiduciaries. If you are falling under profiling, you are covered under this one. Government doing profiling and a private entity doing profiling, there is no difference unless you are able to establish genuine public interest.
Say for example, last question, if these data of all the products that are sold, can we claim the Right to Information Act for public action?
This is not Right to Information Act, this is Data Protection Act. So Right to Information Act and Data Protection Act will coexist. Right to Information Act doesn't have a right where you can ask for deletion. This is a right where you can ask for deletion. So they are two different things. The intention is, the objective is not one and the same.
No, but it has conflicting objectives. One is promotion of business GST, and and curbing harmful products as a public health objective. There is a conflict of
This, I don't see any conflict. Let's say a corporate has some information about your usage pattern. This law only says what you can do, what you cannot do with the data. Right to Information Act gives you a right to ask for the information. This law, other than the data fight principle, nobody else, I cannot go and ask the government, give me data about X or Y. X can ask about X, Y can ask about himself, but he cannot ask for others. Right to Information Act is broad-based. It has got nothing to do with this. There is no conflict. And your question, there is a transition provision. So now one question that came up was, a lot of these organizations already have sensitive data with them. Consent and all of other things, whether it can go retrospectively or it has to be done prospectively. They have suggested some transition provisions on how to handle it, but we'll have to wait for it to be operationalized. For example, if you take an insurance company and they're already sitting on so much of personal information, and whether you need to apply this legislation retrospectively or prospectively, there's under transition provisions.
So the credit information are available for all the banks also. Then in that case, one bank cannot ask the credit information of about a person from another bank or from the syndication. Is it so?
If it falls under the sensitive personal data, unless you are told when I fill up a form and give it to the bank tells you, look, I am collecting this data, I am going to use this data for these purposes, and you have consented to the purpose, then it is free. But if you are telling the bank, I have a credit information about you, and I am alone going to use it, you can't share it. So everything depends upon notice and consent. So if in the notice and consent, purpose is clearly defined, but you cannot have a divergent purpose. Like I said, a bank cannot go and say, I have credit information about you, I'll sell it to some other entity which has nothing to do with.
Not selling, because they have a system of getting information whether this person has default, the person
It will go by consent.
rating and other things.
It will go by consent.
Automatically the consent is unless we sign.
Hereafter it is not. That is what the law says.
Unless we sign, also they will not agree with the loan. We can't apply for the loan.
What do you say? You don't want to consent, you are free not to consent. Even now, if you don't want to use Gmail free, nobody asks you to go and say, I agree to that policy. That's a difference there. That is where the law says. For example, if the bank says, I'll collect credit information about you, I'll share it with another bank or a financial institution, so long as it's a related objective, there is no problem even with that consent. But if the bank says, I'll collect some information and I'll share it with someone else or sell it to someone else, which has nothing to do with banking, then the law says you can't obtain such a consent.
Okay, the second question is, an outsourcing company which is doing only for the foreign company, foreign processing and doing it, whether that certificate will be kept here in India as per the law, and also this act will be applicable for
This
them?
act applies to persons who are resident or citizens of the country. So European Union started this concept. They said this law, GDPR, applies to residents of European Union. So now what happens if 10 people from Europe travel down to India, stay in a hotel in India, whether that hotel is covered under the European law? Because the 10 people are residents of Europe, are citizens of the country, but they are not there, but they are in another country, whether that legislation will apply or not. Same question is here. If it's information about somebody residing in the country, the law applies. If the information is not about residents or persons of the country, fundamental rule is the law will not apply. But there are variants there. You travel to Europe, you stay in Europe for work for 2 months. Whether you can claim protection under the GDPR. Somebody from Europe travels down to India, stays for 6 months for work here, whether they can claim protection under the Indian law. But the fundamental rule is it's first applicable for people who are residing in the country. So if a BPO processes information about foreigners within the Indian territory, this law will not apply. To that activity, it will not.
And the last question is, this will be applicable for the government companies also. For
Yes.
They have all the information. They will not be sharing. They will be sharing it in other department and other things. But then this act will be applicable.
There are certain act is applicable, the law is applicable. There are certain exemptions given for government entities. In genuine public interest or enforcement, they are given exemptions. Thank you very much.
Sundraarama and Sathish to take charge.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So good morning. It's a very good presentation we had. When I used to work in Toyota 15 years ago, the dealership used to buy mobile numbers from customers for about 500 rupees per customer. This was 15 years ago. Can you imagine how much it will cost now? I think it's very important topic to be. Okay. So coming back to our session here, thanks for all joining us. It's really what we're trying to cover is give you an idea of how to value, of the approach valuation of certain financial instruments, and then how can you appreciate how this is adapted and how you use it to say something is properly valued or not. That's what we're trying to do. So what we'll do is first, we'll give a bit of background of what we do in Barclays first, and then give some idea of what happens if this is not done properly. And then we'll take you through the certain instruments, how we value it from a simple perspective. I'm not going to go much mathematics here, just simply introduction of how we approach it. And then we can talk about what are the various steps we put in comparisons in our form. Okay, so what we do in Barclays is what is called as valuation control. There's IFRS 13 definition, I'm not going to go into that. So what we're trying to do is make sure the balance sheet is valued accurately. Vis-a-vis where the independent valuation is there. So it's very, very broad term, as you can see. What we do, there are multiple facets of how this is evolved over a period of time. We started with what is called as comparing the internal mark versus external price in the industry. And we put on various adjustments on top of that, like counterparty adjustment, prudential adjustment, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of adjustments which just happen over a period of time. So it's a very big ocean that we're trying to cover in like 1 hour's time. So we'll try and keep as simple as possible, but if you have any questions, please. Now, what will happen if this is not done correctly? Now, we'll talk about some certain instances of failures, what happens if this is not done correctly. So when I say this is not done correctly, it's like what I mean by is that if you don't ensure the balance sheet is not fairly valued, what are the implications of the firm? It's not only monetary implications, there are also some brand value getting affected. So there is an instance in JP Morgan, back when I was in JP Morgan, where there was a case of what is being discussed as London Whale. There's a person in the trading desk where he's trading a huge portfolio of bonds. This was in what is called a proprietary desk. So basically this team would use the bank's money to make market, placing bets on the market. So these are running into many millions of dollars, as you can see. So what this person did was go and place bets on huge corporate bonds or index of corporate bonds, and betting that this will go in a certain direction of what he thinks it will go. But over time, this index started making losses and everything. Now there are various controls in a bank which is there to prevent such incidents, but each and every one of them failed for many reasons. But this led to failure, so the desk is trying to cover their losses. They're trying to hide it as well. This came to a point where even the CEOs had to make a comment because there's a Wall Street Journal article which came out and said it looks like somebody in JP Morgan is making a huge bet on something and it's very evident. We call them that person London Whale. That's why the CEOs come and say actually it's not much of an issue, it's okay. That's what they said. But a few quarters down the line, this market starts widening. So much so it became like 4 billion in losses. But finally, they exited the position, they ended up having a loss of $6 billion. Now, it's a different issue that JP Morgan made 20 billion in that quarter. That's a different issue. That's really making profits. But it's quite significant loss for the firm, and also for the brand value to have such a deep impact on the numbers. So what happened? What happened there? I remember the guy in valuations back in JP Morgan wrote an email when he was obviously fired. So he wrote an email saying, I'm leaving everything. So when he wrote an email, he said, the day I joined JP Morgan, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of UK. So he's been with the bank for almost 20 plus years, as you can see. So unless we keep updating on what's happening in the banking area, of how they trade the trades and everything, it's not possible. That's the fundamental reason. It doesn't apply only to banks, it applies to all other industries. So how can, so we hire a lot of people from ICI. So how can an analyst, fresh CA graduate coming from ICI, come and talk to a trader who's making millions of dollars every year and successfully challenge saying, look, you're not working this correctly. He's not only making millions of dollars, he's coming from a very big Ivy League college. So these guys come with like a big truckload of ego there. So how do you, as an analyst coming from a fresh CA or even like experienced people like us, go and challenge somebody like that? The only thing I can help is understanding how this product is being valued, the fundamental approach to any political product. So that's what we try and give you some, not we don't cover all products, just cover some idea of how to approach a certain product. Somebody gives, your bank gives you a number, how do you know that's correct? So that's what we're trying to cover in like another 10-20 minutes, then you can appreciate how this is done. So let's call Rama come and give you talk about some introduction to this product, and then I'll come back.
Thanks, Sathish. As Sathish said, we try to keep this math and all simple, but honestly, people try to complicate this more than what it's worth it. In general, anything to do with financial derivatives, options, futures, people put a lot of math around it, but it's quite unnecessary. If you understand the fundamentals and apply some logic, everything, the math will just explain itself. Nobody has to really worry about why is that formula having a log or why is this denominator. None of that is required. Everything has a logical reasoning. And me and Sathish are going to try our best to just focus on that part of it. And what I take sort of pride in doing when I try to explain this to others is try to keep it outside of finance. Like try to explain it like as if you had to buy this bottle of water. If all these principles that we use to value derivatives and complicated financial instruments can be totally put to real world use in our day-to-day practice as well. So we'll try to just keep it at that level. The basic principle is this. Sathish, how much do you buy this? 10 rupees. If the shop's selling this as 20 and you think this is my asset, if the shop's selling this for 20 rupees and because it says 20 rupees at the shop, I should probably have this asset marked at 20 rupees. But I'm now in an arm's length transaction with Sathish. Sathish is only willing to pay 10. Guess what? That's the price. Shop can say whatever. Theoretically, this could be worth 1,000 rupees. It doesn't matter. This guy here, right next to me, is willing to buy it at 10. That can be the price I have to market. What mark my asset? Meaning, the price of a particular asset in my book is where I can sell it. It doesn't matter what theory says. It doesn't matter what the MRP is printed. He's willing to buy it at 10. He's the guy next to me. I can only sell it to him. That big guy I have.
Buyer's mark.
Buyer's mark. Well, it was just going to be a side of price discovery. Theoretically, a share price can be worth 1,000 rupees for Reliance, but in the market, the bids are 800. That's where you have to mark your books. You can see some book value is this, their cash flows are so. It doesn't matter. The buyer is willing to buy at 800. That's where you mark some. So that's why we sort of stressed it 3 times. The price of my asset is how much can I exit this. The theoretical price should not be relevant at all. It's good for your analysis, it's good for deciding whether you want to buy the asset or sell the asset, go long or short. All that the theory will apply. But eventually when you mark your book, you've got to market wherever you can sell it. That's why we try to also just repeat that 3 times. Figure out where you can, how you can hedge it. That will be the price of the asset. We've also said markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Very important statement. The reason is, let's say I'm a sophisticated person. I break up this bottle into its various parts: the cap, the plastic, the water, everything, and then decide the fair value of this piece of asset should be 15 rupees. Right? And I decide, therefore, the market is underpricing it. I'm going to go buy it at 10 and wait for it to come to 15 because that's the real value. Guess what? The market can trade at 10 for a very long time. You'll be financing this asset, thinking it will come, your strategy will work and pay you off. It can take you so long before your strategy works out, or it may never work out. Markets can remain irrational forever, and therefore you go into this, take this risk, buy this position, put this on your balance sheet, wait for it to go to 15, exit the position, make a profit. That profit may just take too long before you can remain short, and you will have to basically wind out and go because your strategy didn't pay out timely. Which is why it's more important for you to realize mark-to-market meaning. So what my colleague Sathish is willing to buy there, mark your books there. Don't project your 5 rupee profit today. Make sure that 5 rupees will only be realized when you have a price discovery at that level. That's the sort of logic we're trying to give here. I'm just going to introduce some jargons that we tend to use. So we work in the trading businesses within the investment bank, which means these are we basically got traders trading in equities, credit, interest rates, foreign exchange, commodities. So some basic jargons we use. I just wanted to make sure you're all aware of all this. Happy to take anything further, like more detail if you wish to. The primary market is where you will essentially go and raise capital. The secondary market is where you trade securities. Primary is like an IPO, secondary is your usual stock exchange. And then the various participants, market participants are important. Right? So Barclays, for example, is a market maker. You want to go long a particular asset, we'll be the other side. You want to go short, we'll be the other side. We don't have a directional view. Whatever you want to do business, we'll be your counterparty. And we try to just do our businesses around that. Usually our investors are real money clients, people like pension funds or insurance clients who have money from their various customers, and they are coming to us with investment ideas. And we'll be the other side for their ideas, and we'll try to give them the ideas, make the other side. But we'll also have some speculators, like who don't have real money but who then try to get leverage exposure. Sometimes we'll have corporates willing to come and hedge with us. So let's say some corporate has some cash flows in a different currency, wants to hedge into their local currency. Those are the sort of market participants we have. Other usual jargons we do is OTC, stands for over the counter. It's where me and you exchange a transaction. There is an exchange is where there is a stock exchange like NSE or something, where there is an organized market which is more credit risk-free. And CCP, central counterparties. This is where OTCs are now also becoming more popular for clearing centrally. Therefore, you sort of reduce the credit risk associated with OTC products. So that's also a popular target. There's a lot I can go into, but I guess I just wanted to make sure you guys had these terminologies in your eyes. Tomorrow you come across and read it in the paper, somebody talks about VAR, okay, it stands for value, it has something to do with trading businesses. I just wanted to throw it in. One of the primary sort of building blocks of any financial instrument valuation, and frankly any asset to be honest, doesn't have to be a financial instrument, is a yield curve. A yield curve is essentially a plot of interest rates versus time. Now you will use a yield curve to either grow your current asset to the future value or discount the future cash flow to the present value. A yield curve is going to be primary basic. Any financial instrument you're going to need to value, you're going to need to have a yield curve at the very, it will be the basic building block for any model. Regardless of whether it's a quantitative model or a statistical model or an actuarial model, you're going to need some sort of a discounting and a growth curve associated with it. So this is like a USD, this is the Indian yield curve. I just took a screenshot from Kumar. Yeah, the x-axis is essentially got the maturity and the y-axis is the actual interest rate. So for example, it says 5-year INR discount rate is like 7.6%. Sort of what you get when you put your money in a fixed deposit in your bank as well. You will build this, how do you come up with this? So you basically have to go and look for transactions. So So let's say I go to the bank today and deposit my money for 3 months. What is the interest I'm getting? That will be one transaction, one piece of information used to build this. Let's say I'm an institutional investor and I can go and I'm like an interbank dealer. SBI can go trade with ICICI on a 20-year maturity profile for let's say fixed versus floating interest rate or a loan. How much is that transaction getting cleared? And that will be another piece of information that will go into forming this yield curve. So we'll take money market instruments in the front end of the yield curve. We'll have some interest rate futures like traded instruments, discoverable instruments, liquid instruments in the middle part of the yield curve, and the further part of the yield curve will be more done by institutional clients like corporates, interbank dealers to build this entire yield curve. And this yield curve will be like a building block to all other financial products. Now the next thing to do is how to project your asset now, or so you enter into a transaction today to value something in the future. What is the future for you? It's important for you to know what is left, what is in there for you. How can this particular asset grow? What will be the shape of its growth? Take a simple example. The forward, the value of an asset is essentially how much is it going to cost for you to buy the asset now and keep it till that point in the future. Let's say I want to buy a stock today, keep it for 1 year. The price at 1 year is how much is this stock price today plus the cost of funding this for 1 year. So 1 year funding it. So therefore the price in the future will be higher than the price currently. That's a forward. But then let's say that stock gives you some income like dividends, etc. Then you will have to that income has to be negated from the forward value because those are income for you, right? So you will essentially less the dividend income or any other cash flows you receive from this asset in order to bring up the forward value. If that asset, holding that asset has a beneficial, has some benefit for you, if it gives you some what we call as convenience yield, or if it gives you some, or if you have to store the asset, let's say I buy a barrel like gold, I need to pay for a gold to store the gold. Those will be additional costs you have to include in your model to essentially come up with the forward price of an asset. This is a theoretical concept, but let's go to a practical example. What can I do with all this information I told you? Yield curves, forward price, a real world example. Right? Let's say you're a company that imports from the States, right? And you will have to pay your company in the United States, or your counterpart in the United States, $1 million in 3 months. So you owe the company $1 million in 3 months. You are an Indian-based company. You have your revenues in INR because you sell your products in INR and your cash flow inputs are in INR. How can I now use this INR cash flow inputs to pay the $1 million in 3 months? It's a simple, like a practical, real-world problem. Everybody deals with every day. A very simple option will be, we just wait in 3 months' time, collect all our sales cash flows, convert that into US dollars and pay the company in 3 months. But the problem is, what if INR depreciates in the process? You will have to shell out more INR for the same $1 million. Now that's going to be very expensive sometimes. So if you don't want to have that FX rate volatility, there is a way to deal with this using all the information we just spoke about, the yield curves, the forward price and everything. Just some basic assumptions, like if you assume spot rate of $71 INR, 3-month interest rate in the US is say 2.3% and in India is 6.8%. This information is very important because you can see the interest rates in US is lesser than in the interest rates in India. This will decide the shape of the forward curve for the asset. The asset here is going to be USD INR FX rate. So what we can do in order to hedge this so-called exposure we've got, so we want to lock in the FX rate. The FX rate is something that you're going to incur in 3 months' time, not spot, future. So you're going to need to incur this in 3 months' time. Now you can do this. Right? You just figure out how much dollars you need today. That will become 1 million in 3 months' time because that's your payable in 3 months' time. So you essentially present value of $1 million today using that rate of 2.3% as the discount rate. And that comes to $994,000 US. So if you had $994,000 US today, put it in fixed deposit for 3 months in a bank. In 3 months' time, that will neatly grow into 1 million, and you can pay your counterpart. So that's the amount of dollars you're going to need right now. Now the next thing to do is how much Indian rupees are you going to need to borrow to purchase $994,000
a spot rate of 71, that comes to INR 70 lakhs, 7 million, INR 7 million. So you need 7 million INR, 7.5 million INR right now. So now go to your INR bank, so call your total banker, borrow that 7 million at an interest rate of 6.8% per annum in India for 3 months. So you know your final out, you'll have to end up paying this bank with interest 7.1 million, 71 lakhs 792,000 in 3 months. Now this transaction will lock in your FX rate. Your FX rate, now your cash flows are fixed. In 3 months you owe your Indian bank 71 lakhs. In 3 months you are going to essentially pay your US counterpart the 1 million. So you lock in your FX rate at 71.79. Spot rate is 71. If I transacted USD INR today it's 71. In 3 months time it's turned out to become 71.71. As you can see, the FX rate in the future is different to the FX rate in the current because the interest rate differentials between the two countries. This is a practical example that you're going to deal with on your daily life. Tomorrow you will use the corporate rate, how they fix it? That's from the yield curve. You're talking about the 6.8% of the book. That's what the yield curve is built for. Yield curve is essentially a plot of all the interest rates for that currency as a function of time.
Interest rate.
Sorry?
Based on interest rate,
yes, correct. Whatever, the best way to find out that answer for your practical purposes, you call your bank, say you want to borrow money, what interest rate it gives you, put that number here, solve for your formula, solve for your FX rate. It's not that this is necessarily the same for everyone. So, this is a theoretical example, but you may not be able to borrow money at the same interest rate at which you are going to deposit money. There will be a spread there. I have not gone into that. That spread can be
negotiate with the banker to fix it.
Yeah, good point. I'm glad you asked that question. Right? So this will help you ask this question. So now you know, okay, when you call your bank, you say you want to essentially lock in an FX rate for 6 months in the future, and that guy gives you a quote or whatever. This is how you back calculate it for. This is how you verify yourself. Is this quote valid, fair enough or not? So in order to break, so that quote he's going to give you is 0.79 rupees. 79 paise additional FX rate. So what is the basis of coming up with that? And now you have the theory. You can go and back solve it and then think if you're going to grip or what the reporting rate is sensible or not. But it's important.
Sorry for just a minute. I will explain it in his language. The difference between these two is only 6.8 and 2.8. The difference is 4% in the difference between dollar and also this Indian rupee. 4% is per annum, 3 months is 1%. Then 71 into 1, roughly. But actually don't come, but roughly I'm saying 71 into then it is the premium is 71. The which is the 71 or whatever. That is the term. Okay, then it will become. Because he is there, if you would have given like 2% and 6%, more or less it will come 71.71. Because they are presenting it for a clear. Now we can carry on.
Yeah. So this is a practical example. Anyone sitting in a corporate treasury is going to face. So we just wanted to make sure you're aware of how the banker who gives you a quote is able to value this. And banks like Barclays, we are able to basically break this trade into parts. We'll be able to give you the quote and we'll be able to do a synthetic transaction with all this because we have such a big balance sheet and a lot of trades flowing in our books. We're able to do this almost without any human intervention. So that's this is the building blocks on how we are able to do this. I'll pass it on to my colleague Sathish, who's probably going to introduce you to a few more financial products, instruments.
So, I want to touch upon credit equal swaps as well. From now, credit equal swaps is very similar to your term insurance. So, we all pay annual premiums to the life insurance company. In case of an unfortunate event, they would then pay a lump sum back. This profile is very similar to that. But what it does in this case is we are trying to protect ourselves from a default of a certain company. That is what this instrument delivers. So what we do is, on the top we see the small blue boxes. That's the premium that I as a protection buyer, that is called as protection buyer. So I'm buying a protection. We take some local company, you could go to a bank and say, look, I'm getting some payment in some time, but I want to safeguard myself against that counterparty defaulting. But I mean, I'll address for all you know, and they're not defaulting, so your payment is now question mark. So this product will help you do that. But what you do with the transaction is basically you pay a premium amount, and then in case of default at whatever time, nobody can predict what the time is, then the bank will then pay back what is called as the lump sum after some deductions, which is called as recovery amount. Now, how do we do this? So even if you take life insurance case, for example, the life insurance company quotes you a premium. How do you know that the premium they quote is fair or okay? Now, obviously, I don't go invest in life insurance. I can only find another company. But how do you know whether that? How do you know that company? How do they arrive at that value? So it's nothing but you take the expected value of all those payments on the top. So all the premium amounts that I'm paying, and then that has to be equal to for a bank. That has to be equal. So if I'm paying, so if I have all of you guys paying me premium, so the expected value of the expected I'm paying back to in case of an event should be equal to all the premiums that I'm paying, or in fact lesser than the premiums I'm getting. That's how I make a profit. So to value this premium, what we do is we equate the expected value of the top cash flows on the bottom cash flows, and then arrive at the spread. How do we do it? Now, in this slide, what we've done here is, so this top table here, that's the expected value of the premiums that I'm paying. So what I'm assuming here, I'm assuming here a notional of 1, unit 1. I'm assuming a straight line interest rate of 5%. And I'm assuming a regulator of 40%. And there's something called as hazard rate, that is, which is on the second column here. The hazard rate is nothing but the expected default probability given somebody has got defaulted in the previous year. So if you take a similar life insurance example, for a smoker, this will be much higher. For a non-smoker, this will be much lesser. Because if a smoker has not, if it's happening in a couple of years, the expected default happening in the next 10 years is much lesser. So that's what this exactly does. So the top table adds up all the premium amount that I'll be paying over a period of time. And the bottom left-hand table is the expected value that the bank would pay me back in case of there's an event. So on this part, this lower right-hand corner is nothing but the expected, the accrual part between the time I'm starting paying. So for example, if I pay annual premiums, suddenly the event happens somewhere in the middle. So the 6-month period is what this second table right covers that. So to come up with the premium amount that we earlier talked about, both these values should be equal to 0. So if I add A plus B, top to right, this has to be equal to the C. So it's a simple case of you setting up in Excel saying, if you do it in the beginning, these two cash flows will be high in number. And then the equity amount which the company buys back based will be much lower. So we need to equate that to say, arrive at a spread number, which will then make these two cash flows equal. If you do that, if you solve that for Excel, you get a number just like 1.24%. So that's the premium amount that I'm expected to pay given these assumptions, the hazard rate and the recovery rate. So all the life insurance company has to do is to change this hazard rate for a smoker or a non-smoker, or depending upon other criteria for the insurer. Same goes for a corporate or a. So you can see clearly this depends only on majorly on two things. One is the hazard rate, and the other is the interest rate component. So as two of them changes, you can expect the premium also to change over a period of time. So this is what I'm going to give you like a taste of how we price CDS or how this company is priced. So you can use it to say, is this being valued fairly or not? This is what that is. And then coming to our Barclays, what do we do when we do family or test our balance sheet? So there are multiple approaches to do. If you take the previous waterfall example, it's enough if you just go find out how much people are paying for water bottles in the marketplace. Because it's very simple product. It's enough to go and find out from marketplace. For comparison, if you have a government bond, let's say INR government bond, it's enough to have a couple of more quotes from the market, which is independently valued. But if you have a more simpler, more complex product like interest rate swap or exotic swap, I need to value how much the interest rate risk is moving. So I do like a risk-based testing. So I then compare the rate at which the swap curve is marked by the desk and how the swap curve is marked by the external market. So I then compare that number, multiply that with the risk exposure that I have on the exposure. Another approach would be completely to say, going back to the previous example, where I completely revalue the whole swap myself. Take a serious example, I value the whole software, sell using certain resources. That is called full evaluation. So if you have a capability and you do that, they can then approach that approach. So here I've given you an example of what happens, how do you test one. So if they test or the trader marks the bond and say 96, I get an independent valuation of some 4 vendors at different prices. I then take an average of those prices and made a price of 97. So how is then the variance computed? It's nothing but the difference between the average vendor mark minus the test mark which is there, minus the notional, which is this plus 100. So this plus 100 indicates that the trader is being conservative. It means that he should have marked it at 97, but he's marking only 96. So the bank is setting the bank by about 100,000 rupees. The other way would be that he's marking 97 and the external vendors are saying 96. So thereby we call that as aggressive. He's marking his book more than what the external vendors are saying. That we call as aggressive. So then you become negative. So the formula is always external minus internal. So that the sign always says whether in which direction the marks are. So we also cover many other asset classes in the form. So ranging from complexity of the product and then liquidity of the product. So if you take a normal iron or normal bond, they will fall into this lower blue category. That's why most of your plain vanilla cash product, as we call, fall into that category. And the middle one is where all your swaps, derivatives fall into the picture, like CDS, IR swaps, and certain exotic products like permanents. And the very far end we have illiquid stuff, and at the same time there are more very complex as well. So this is very complicated where they have big cash flows of, so earlier we saw a single name CDS on one company. You can have multiple CDSs packaged into one deal. So they can have products like that. That's called aegis CDS, which is all on the far right. So we cover all those products. There is something called, so earlier we saw what we saw as IPV, how we test the equivalent price of the test, which is an Indian price for the market. On top of this, we also do certain more adjustments to the balance sheet. What are those and why do they need to require? So these are called family adjustments. So if you saw the earlier example, I gave you an example where the test marks are down on at a certain price. I then compare to an external price and say this is the difference. So we need to adjust your book by this number. So is it enough? We stop with that. But the regulator says no, we need to do more. So what are those more? So there are something called as so bid offer spreads. So the trader might mark at bid price, but if he actually sells the product out to external counterparty, he has to incur some charges. So banks always do bid offer spread on certain product. If you go and exchange currencies, you can see clearly they buy and sell at 2 different rates. That's the bit of the spread they charge for that particular currency. So if we are marking our books, we need to capture that spread into our books as well, make it fair. So that's one example of that. On top of that, we have counterparty management adjustment, which is called as, say for example, we exposed to another client, we are not sure whether they will pay back the money that we expect to pay. So we have CVAs or counterparty management adjustment for that. And then there is also DVA, XVA component, which are even more complicated versions of the same CVA product. And then we have other adjustments to the books, such as overages, where the model is not enough to capture all those balances correctly. So then put another adjustments on top of that. I won't go into that. And there's something called as prudential adjustment. This is something it's more so in the UK banks than other areas. So what this says is, you could say, look, I've already done my price testing. Then on top of that, I've also done my camera adjustment. What do you still want me to do? What is that I still left out? How can you possibly think there is something else left out? But the regulator says, look, yes, you've done all those things, but there is still something called as the vendor dispersion. So what do you mean by vendor dispersion is, you could have, so if you go ask the same bottle, I could get 10 different prices for the same water bottle. So the regulator says, I need to consider the lowest price that I get for a certain asset or a liability and factor that into my capital. So that's one of the components of principal. Then in the earlier example, you saw that the desk had huge versions of a certain product. So they concentrated. For example, if you have many shares of a certain company, it's where you go and sell them all, dump them on the share market. That will move the market quite significantly. Which which means I'm concentrated in that particular asset or product. So in that instances, so regulator says I need to hold certain adjustment. How do you calculate that adjustment? That's purely based on the time to sell the product. How long does it take to exit that product entirely? If it takes more than 10 days, for example, compare the amount of volume that we have for that product and then book the adjustment based on that. The other component is the modeling uncertainty. It's more to do with how we model a certain product. What are the risks associated with it? We also keep an adjustment for that. So this is broadly all the various facets that are into a various control that we apply. So you can imagine there are so many products, so many facets of this product, they can go wrong anywhere. So this is what we try and do as clearly as possible to each other with the attacks. Last but not least is the IFRS 13 disclosures, which as you know IFRS 13 we need to characterize the balance sheet into level 1, 2 and 3. So we do that as well as part of our process where we go and say certain product will do all level 1, which means that these are very liquid product and anybody, the shareholder can just go and see in the market and easily value the product. And there is something called as level 3, which means there's completely illiquid. There's no way a person with a fair product can go and price it independently. We need to have more knowledge of the product to go and price it independently. So those things we categorize as level 3 assets. Level 2 is like between both or level 1 and level 2. You need some expertise, but it's not very difficult to price. For example, CDS, IRS also come to that. So you can just go get some rates and everything and you can price it. And then we also do some disclosures. Not about that, like level 3 assets. If there are level 3 assets in our balance sheet, we go with extra disclosures to say how these come out, what are the parameters that we input to price it, what are the minimum and maximum values that takes that these values takes and everything. So we do on top of that as well. So that's pretty much what we wanted to cover, giving overall idea of what we do with valuations.
What is the model you use for valuation? Is it Black-Scholes model?
There are quite a few. Nobody uses Black-Scholes now because Black-Scholes is a very theoretical model. It has a lot of assumptions which doesn't exist practically. Maybe Black-Scholes was there like many years ago. But that is a fundamental model to start with. But then if you look practically, there are many adaptations to that.
What is the model you're using on the model?
So it depends on which product you're asking. So for example, if you take options, so many models.
This is way too many.
Way too many.
All in-house built.
In-house built in Barclays. So the models of HSBC will be different from.
See, the theoretical part will be there. For example, if you take a Monte Carlo simulation, which simulates how the asset prices evolve over a period of time, the number of simulations that we run could be different than the number of assumptions that they run. So assumptions would differ between bank to bank, but the fundamental model should be the same.
No specific authors.
Basically, there is a theory. Let's say Black-Scholes definitely used. But we would interpret Black-Scholes in a certain way that works for us. Building blocks is what you do.
Because Black-Scholes himself can say that his model is not perfect.
Yeah, so we account for those deficiencies and make a modified version that will work. So here's a better.
Okay, let's take it from a slightly different approach. So one way of thinking about this is, one part of this is just the theoretical or the mathematical part. When you first try to define, this is the price of the derivative that I want to arrive at. You try to solve it using mathematics. Then computers don't read mathematics. Then you have to take that hardcore mathematics and write it in a computer language, which the computer can read every time. So every derivative, the price of every derivative is essentially the solution of a mathematical equation. So you have to then write a code which can read that equation and solve that equation. So the theoretical maths behind it always remains the same, and that is industry-wide common. And then the implementation of that model, as we call it, or the implementation of that mathematical solution, that is done by each bank on their own.
So if you take the CDS example we saw earlier, there is something called as a calculation. So we take the theoretical part and then see how we get the theoretical price first, and then see what the market has implied, and then work it back to what does it imply for us. So the assumptions in the world we keep changing, the hazard rate, the interest rate component, that's what we keep changing to calibrate to what the market is implying for the certain product. So that's why you call how we can calibrate. But the fundamental model, as I say, is 2 points. Yes, but it's not calibrated to market conditions.
One thing to look at, sir,
Sorry.
politics will also have a place.
Politics? Yeah, that will be the counterparty adjustment. So in case we have exposure to Italy, for example, and there is some political events going on in Italy, so this CBA counterparty adjustment will factor for that. Yes, definitely.
In general, pricing of financial investment does not take into any view that this will happen in the future, this government will happen. None of that is taken into the view. You will be neutral to all this when you price a product.
Exception is that all facts are going up.
No, so that's the difference. The theoretical price will come at X, but the actual market is trading at Y. The difference between X and Y is that political value or the additional risk we are assuming.
But if valuation is purely perspective from one banker to another banker, then how can a corporate rely on this MTM valuation statements given by various bankers, which they are, inculcating in their financial statements?
See, what way, as we talk to now, we can also imply to a certain degree of accuracy. So if take the same FX product, for example, he also gave you a different approach to the same, simple approach to what we know. It's not very hard to, unless it's a very exotic product, it's not very hard to price something. There are many prices, if you just Google it, you'll get many prices. So what we're trying to give you an approach is, it's not that difficult to price it yourself, but you need to know the assumptions that are used. You can ask your corporate, if you're a corporate, you can ask the bank, what assumptions are you using to price this product? If it's an FX product, what are the rates that you're using to price this product? They definitely have to give you that assumptions. And you can compare the assumptions, see if it makes sense for you, or if it's too or wrong.
End of the day, your house to you may be worth 1 crore, to your neighbor may be worth only 80 lakhs, to a buyer may be worth 60 lakhs. The same problem even in financial risk. The markets disperse, people are there.
That would mean ourselves valuing the entire financial instruments.
That's right.
If we want to look into the perspective of each banker and try to get out what exactly and how exactly the valuation works from their side, that means we ourselves would be valuing the financial instruments.
Yeah, or you can quote for values from different
That's
banks.
correct. So what corporate normally do is they don't go to one bank and get buy. They go and ask different, even life insurance. You don't go to one line of the policy and get it. You go check the different policy providers. Same here. If you go and ask different banks, there's something called as bids wanted in competition, where they go publicly ask for these bonds we want bids. So bank would submit bids and say this is what I'm bidding at. So no bank, certainly some bank is quoting very high prices, they will never get the business done.
So purely speaking about the MTM valuation statements,
Correct.
the content purposes. What corporates usually do is they blindly rely on MTMs from various bankers. They don't look into their valuation.
Understand. So I'm not saying you should go and revalue everything. So that's why we ensure that the books are not correct. So whatever numbers you get is being controlled by somebody in the bank independently of the trader who actually marketing it.
The function we work in is called product control. It's very popular with Western investment banks. Every bank will have this function, and most of the numbers you receive is passed through our eyes.
There is another perspective to it, I think, which is not really been touched because we haven't gone into that much detail. Banks always provide what is known as a two-way code. So if you go to the bank and say, I want to buy this bond, what price are you selling? The bank will tell you, I'm willing to buy at this price and I'm willing to sell at this price. So if you think my price is very high, you are able to sell to me as well. Like, the difference is, let's say when you go to buy potatoes, if you think that shopkeeper is selling at 40, someone else is selling at 30, you don't really get the opportunity of buying from this person at 30 and selling to the shop at 40. But banks always provide you that opportunity where they say, I will buy from you at 99.5 and you can sell to me at 99.6. I will buy from you as well at 99.6. So I am selling you at a price and I am willing to buy from you at a price. So if you think my price is wrong, please sell to me. Go buy from someone.
The same thing, 99.5, okay, 99.6. Whereas the other bank will be quoting a different thing, that's what we are asking valuation.
They might quote you 99.5 to and 99.58, but it will very rarely happen that I am willing to buy at a price at which someone else will sell you. Because that is where the interbank market spread is.
No, that's right.
So what is saying is corporate will make profit. So the MTM which you see will already remove this arbitrage opportunity. So if another bank is quoting 92.8, instead of making the financial statement, the corporate will sell. They'll buy from here and sell here and make money rather than spending time. So the value they quote, the best value.
after comparing.
Depends upon the product.
Meaning it will be within that range only.
Yes.
Nothing will be overlapping with it.
Yes, more or less it will be very close. It's all a competitive market.
Because all banks are competing against each other as well. So if we are selling you, let's say, FX at 79, and you think that is very expensive USD INR, you are welcome to buy from someone else at 78 if we are buying from you at 78 and a half. Because usually, the problem is whenever you see our buying and our selling rates being very wide. So if you walk into an HDFC branch and you tell them I want to sell you USD, they will say I will buy from you at 77. And if you say I want to sell, then they will say, oh no, I will only send you at 79. That's where the problem is.
Even for shares, for example, there are few brokers who would give you a better quote than others, right? For financial institutions, we do give guaranteed price sometimes to execute because they want to take a price at the close of the market. So we are more talking here only from sale buy perspective, right? So index rebalancing when they are doing, they want to close a particular buy a share at a close price. Nobody can give at a close price. Investment banks do give at a close price. How do they give? Because they do accumulate shares and then they execute at the close price to you, so that when you buy the share, you don't need to adjust for prices. It will be at the index level automatically. So these guaranteed prices are also given by investment banks. So it is more a selling strategy than anything else. If I have to sell at a guaranteed price, I have to accumulate my inventory. I should be a market maker, I should hold a lot of inventory of that stock. So I would have bought at a better price to give you at a better price. But here they are talking only about marking it. If it's a listed product, it's very easy, fairly simple, and there should not be any confusion. But wherever models are involved, there will be some changes between banks. That is what they are trying to say. And more exotic the product is, more variants are possible, isn't it? That is why the level 3 products not come into picture, where it's more difficult to ascertain.
If the models are different from all banks, then over a period you will be able to find out the consistency which is good or which is bad.
So do you
Meaning that
that is environment, social governance, and ESG risk in your models?
So if you take any product, right, there are many, if you divide the risk, there are many risks. So the actual trading risk wouldn't factor that your this, because one person only know about that particular market, you will do that. But as a bank, yes, there are other elements to that. Like we would then put in additional adjustments, which is called as adjustment we talked about. So the credit risk, the adjustments that I talked about, would most will take care of that. Like I said in the previous example, if it is Italy, for example, the current serious period of Italy would factor in all those socio-economic conditions that you reflected. So if the bank has sold protection to somebody, where we are supposed to pay back somebody in case of Italian default, and if there is some noise coming out from Italy, definitely the serious spreads are increased. Therefore, the charges that we put on top of the like a counterparty adjustment will be spiked. So net, the end up the balance will be very accurate.
Last question. Do you have any financial innovation incubators?
Yes, Barclays has. Yes.
Barclays has.
Yes.
Any address where I can approach financial incubators?
I think it's called as Rise Mumbai. If you just type Rise Mumbai, it's in Mumbai. Just risemumbai.com. They have like a separate startup platform for
aegis.
RISC.
But as he's mentioned in this presentation, it's not just purely about price. There are other risks like concentration risk also where he might need to make some adjustments. If you are holding, say the free float is certain percentage, you are holding more than that, there also we need to take provisions, right? Purely not just from the price point alone, we have other risks which are considered. So he spoke about 3 layers. One just pricing, then fair value, then he has got the prudential valuation as well. Prudential valuation more specific to UK at this point in time, but there are some specific risks. Into that lens also they do see if the marking in the books are all fine. Though the price might be fixed, but there might be other risks which we might need to look at, the concentration risk like what he said and all that. So it's just not price alone. The fair value represents all the 3 factors that he has walked through.
It's a highly theoretical, all these whatever that. Will it lead like a subprime prices where in the USA they have built up on some model based on some assumptions. and then collapsed and then it a big loss.
So subprime is not caused by model, but it's not understanding the model. That's what it might. And then
It is the assumption.
but then not the exploitation of the underlying assumption. Right? So the CDO is a beautiful instrument if you look at it in that way, where you get to pull everybody has got or have mortgages with banks. You can pull all those mortgages together. I can then securitize, saying if I have like 1 crore of say 100 crores of mortgages from all of it, I can then tranche into different products. Say the top 60 crores will be given to some pension fund or banks, and I'll be paying like say 3% coupon. And then medium term, I have like people who got are very risky payments. You go to some other investor or hedge fund, and they'll pay slightly more interest rate. The bottommost tranche, where people are more likely to default, I'll give more returns for that. So as a product, it's very very good. But the problem only comes is when they give all these loans to people, they don't do proper checks on everything.
The problem was not the derivative. The problem was the underlying asset on which the derivative was built. It's only the mortgage loans which were given which was wrong, not the product in itself. Because
the program itself, that what they say, that under which they have built, that was not taken into some of the assumptions, like like a housing, whether it will go down. Their assumption is that it will go on. So whether what will happen if it goes down, he says we have no answer. I'm just telling you.
No, understood.
We are laymen anyway.
What are the differences in the foreclosure? In India, there is no foreclosure. I cannot just walk out and say I'm not going to pay. I'm paying attention, right? So what are the differences in foreclosure? In India, we cannot foreclose on loan. I can just walk out and say I'm not going to pay. Whereas in US, I can do, which let many people just walk off. In fact, many of the properties which were foreclosed, there are many hedge funds who went and bought those properties at very very cheap prices in like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. They went and reowned it slightly and then they put it on rental market back. There's a very clear case few years ago where they did that and then they made a lot of money on that. It's not like the houses are bad. It's not like the people who bought it bad. It's just the system and everything go in place where it became better.
I definitely
Just like Race Mumbai, do you have any initiative for a sustainable stock exchange related to
stock exchange?
Sustainable development goals and stock these markets are taken care of sustainable stock exchanges?
I don't know what that is.
How close are you in implementing sustainable development goals? Like getting into sustainable stock exchanges? Mumbai Stock Exchange has a sustainable stock market which makes it bank sustainable. Say for instance, this much of derivative, the bank will be sustainable. If we go on betting far beyond the capacity, the banking will not be sustainable.
So, it's sort of
How do we make sustain?
It's very difficult and it varies from country to country. In India, say junk bonds are not allowed. Junk bonds basically means high risk, but the returns are very high. Depends upon the risk appetite of each country. Okay. For example, you run a pension fund, you need specific interest rate, not very high, but you want interest rate consistently. You don't have too much of instruments. Like what Sathish said, the collateralized debt creates a tranche where you actually give high protection.
No, what I want, the underlying is $1 million. The derivative based on that is some $500 million.
Asking the leverage, is that the maximum leverage?
It depends sustainable limit on it so you can trust the bank.
So, Barclays is one of the categories too big bank to fail, too big bank to fail. It is one of the biggest bank to fail. So because of that, we need to hold certain capital separately for those kind of exposures. So the prudential adjustment that we saw earlier, whatever adjustment I'm taking there will go straight to my tier 1 capital. So if I have say 100 million of adjustment, I need to keep aside 100 million of adjustment from my capital, or keep more 100 million more capital in my from my as tier 1 capital. So that way they are ensuring the banks will not fail in case that goes down.
And again, decoupling retail bank versus investment bank is another important thing because the funds of retail bank shouldn't be used for investment bank. So that decoupling also is done so that it is more.
Yeah, ring-fencing is all the back office, HR, accounts will be in a separate company. The retail bank, customer deposit cards, loans will be in another bank. All the high risk derivative products which we are discussing will be in another bank. So even if this bank goes bust because of subprime crisis, other two will continue. Otherwise, what happened in Lehman, when Lehman closed, the people in HR department lost job, people in finance department lost job. Who will do the work? And retail depositors got lost. That is one. Second, to answer your question, there is a cap on leverage. Like rightly said, if you have a 100 rupee deposit, you cannot lend 10,000 rupees of loan, or you cannot do 10,000 worth of derivatives. There are limits in place as per the risk appetite of the banks. How much risk we can take as a risk department which controls. And like Sathish said, they also keep capital. So if your leverage is very high, you need to keep more capital from your pocket. So you cannot do a business with 10 rupees. You cannot raise a loan deposit of 90 and sell a loan of 100. You have to do 20 rupees from your pocket and take only 80 from deposit and only sell 100. So that is how they are.
So it's sustainable.
So it will remain sustainable. That's what has happened in the last 10 years after 2008 subprime crisis, wherein the governments, the G20s, have ensured a type of Basel regulation. All the sustainability is in place.
And they are also doing stress testing at a regional level, Eurozone. All this is really what we can push.
Ultimately, quality of assets is the end use. Whether you are safe or not safe, the end user whether it
Because products they come from UK or USA, the risk profile of the businesses in ASEAN countries is totally different. Do you deal with those things?
The financial products.
Yeah, there is
The financial products of each country are regulated by the regulators in the country. So I cannot get something directly from UK and sell here, not possible at all. So Barclays, if it has to operate in India, it has to operate based on the regulations in India. And it has to have an onshore entity in India to execute trades and things like that. But INR is not fully convertible. That way, if you look at it, you can't just trade INR anywhere. So same thing applies to Singapore, for example. You can trade from Singapore into India, but there are only few countries like that from where you can trade onshore, offshore. You cannot directly trade from UK into India and stuff like that. So there are a lot of regulations.
No, I understand that. Actually, how different do they see the risk profile?
the risk which you mentioned, will it be different when you model a US product versus a Singapore product?
Singapore product, ASEAN product. Because
Or Asian
ASEAN is 8.6 billion people. Yesterday, day before yesterday, Prime Minister was in Singapore promoting fintech for ASEAN countries. How differently you look at the risk profile? Because, for example, I work in diabetes taxation. So 1.3 billion people are under the risk of diabetes. And the profits are booked in UK, Cadbury company.
So, what
I still didn't get the question actually. In terms of the market, see, we value based on the market curves, right?
Market curves, but the markets are maybe irrational.
So that is what we are also saying, right? Markets can be irrational, but it is a price discovery mechanism. When a medicine comes in your world, when a medicine comes for the first time, you pay obscene amount of money to buy a medicine, right? When the same medicine after a few years, you pay much lesser. There is always a value that you perceive when you attach to it. That is how the irrationality comes with, right? In diabetes, when there is no medicine, one person finds a medicine, it will be highly priced. It's again a supply demand. So there will be irrationality in it. What you perceive as value might not be perceived by another person.
Firms where you deal with those type of risk, fintech companies, any innovation in those areas, ESG risk, because diabetes is a social risk. And Barclays has a ESG department also.
Yeah. See, there are financial risks that we take care of.
No, banks also take care of ESG risk. They are
No. In terms of valuation, what I'm saying is if Lehman is there, which went collapsed, right? So after that, there are some regulations where companies like Barclays are allowed to invest in financial companies only to a certain extent.
So those things fine.
No.
What I'm saying is that for they have an ESG risk department, they have research teams for that. How do they take up new risk profiles to their account? Because ASEAN is a 3.86 billion people come economy. So far, if it is a diabetes in UK cost 330 pounds, the same medicine may be costing only 3 rupees in India. And the cost of life in India is at minimal level, where they have a lot of importance for cost of life in the UK.
So what is Barclays selling or
Barclays is investing in food businesses.
So they invested money in the company.
The company. Because they got the Nestle, Cadbury, two companies. These are chocolates.
Yeah.
The India is becoming a diabetes capital.
See, Barclays can't issue or invest money like that because you have retail customers, right? What probably would have happened is they probably loaned money to that corporate. You probably loan money to Nestle or Cadbury. That's what probably is happening. Like any bank in the country.
The way I ask you is that if you go to Barclays website, there's the ESG risk department. Is it not? It's a very relevant question for valuation of financial instruments globally. That's the ESG risk department. They don't take cognizance of ASEAN risk. They take cognizance of developed country risk. That's the difference. And in G20, 2008, after the financial market collapse, they agreed that obesity is a market risk that was failed.
So why is that related to Barclays?
They invest in food businesses.
We don't invest anywhere. We are only client facilitation.
No.
We are a bank.
Yeah, but they have ESG risk department to manage all these risks.
We have departments, sir. What I don't understand.
How
We
they
don't invest in Cadbury's.
No,
We don't invest in Nestle. If Nestle comes and takes a product,
I'll put it in this way. If they lend money to a UK corporate or they lend money to an Indian corporate, the risk they attach will be different. It's not the same. So from a bank perspective, if I lend 1 crore to a UK corporate, whether it's in diabetes or any other industry, if I do the same thing in Asia, means how I value the product is completely different. So there's no leniency or to UK or to Asia because I cannot do that. I'm not allowed to do that.
But still there is actually, I have spotted it. I work on the specific area.
Maybe you have to reach out to the team for specifics, but I don't think that is more relevant for the context of
valuation financial.
No, I understand that, but it's something specific which you're asking, whether they are accounting, whether they are.
Just give you an email address and just mail the details. If you want to discuss it or help me.
The specifics which you're asking, maybe we'll have to reach out to the specific team to understand the dynamics of it, or is there any rationale why they are doing what they are doing.
again,
But
this
maybe not
is
the
not specific
scope
to
of
Barclays. They are not representing Barclays as.
This is a very serious problem in UK.
Now, there are two things are there. They are all coming from financial institutions.
This is not a financial instrument.
Now, another thing is, as a Barclays, they have an asset, they will maybe having fixed asset. That means, okay, building, they may be having investment, they may be having. That is a different portfolio for them. That is the other thing. What they are all doing is this valuation for
Valuation, they have risk, you value risk.
No, that valuation is also done as per IFRS 13.
As sir rightly pointed out,
As
there
per,
is
yeah.
a very distinct distinction between Barclays as a legal entity and the business that runs. What we are talking about is individual financial instruments that we are trading facing a client.
Any bank.
So if he comes, no, wait, hear me out. If he comes to buy an FX forward from me, I cannot distinguish whether he has diabetes or doesn't have diabetes. I don't care.
Barclays website says, I'm sorry, finish
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
hang on.
Last way, finish up.
Barclays is a global business doing in 86 countries. You can't
Yeah,
equate
so
one
you
financial
factor
instrument.
in diabetes risk in UK but not in India.
See,
That's the problem. Actually, I'm telling you, there's a big problem. I have been to G20 on this matter. They agreed that this is a problem that has to be paid.
I really don't see the relevance here.
It's relevant because valuation of financial instruments for sustainable stock, you commit to sustainable stock exchanges, you commit that Barclays is signatory of PRI, Principle of Responsible Investments, UNPRI. There they say that we will comply with ESG risk compliances.
Doing which business? Why doing which business?
All the businesses.
We cannot comment upon ESG at this point in time, sir.
Barclays Asset Management Company is also there in the signatory list. Does they ask, is there any option where we can?
Sir, if you really have questions on that, you can actually go on the website and directly ask them. They will definitely respond. If it's a value for them, they'll definitely implement it. Because this is a bank which has not even taken funds during the collapse. It has not taken any government funds. It has come back on its own. So it has got very 300-year-old, very conservative bank, 300-year-old bank. But we cannot talk on behalf of that particular department at this point in time, and that is not right also.
Okay, no, I just want to know if you have any contacts to, or if you can.
I think you should be able to reach out.
You are ready to more than us about it. So maybe you are better placed to reach out.
If you can't find anything, then email us. The email is on the email. So you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Actually, to give your explanation, in Barclays balance sheet, you will be having a fixed asset mainly, okay, the building also there, cash will be there, and balance with other banks. That is our
Let me tell you, there is no
as a
complaints.
bank, they will be doing it, a small portion.
If there is
We are
no
nothing to
complaints,
with the
we will
portfolio
send it,
management.
sir.
Portfolio management.
We generally don't
different
circulate
valuation.
See, there will be various teams doing various different activities, right? So what you are requesting or interacting might be taken care by a different department. See, maybe we are not aware of the specifics. So it's better you reach out to that particular team to have the dialogue. So if they have any different position, they might explain why they have, or is there something they are in progress of doing compliance, they will explain.
We are not even representing formally Barclays here. The idea was to come, share with the institute an idea around how financial instruments are valued. We are not representing Barclays, we are not speaking on behalf of Barclays.
Even
There is got nothing to do with Barclays.
So you can email.
No, because the topic is too skewed towards a particular company, I think it is not appropriate at this point.
He spoke of risk.
Barclays is all talking about the Barclays balance sheet is ready.
No, Barclays is given us
203
all the financial instruments, all the risk after ESG risk component also.
See, the best will be for you to email, there's an email for investor
No,
relations.
I'll take it to it.
The investor relations email, there's a site only for the investor relations page in Barclays. So they take all the queries from investors or public on balance sheet. So first thing is to email them with all the links that you have seen. Saying, look, this is why I'm asking you, why this is not affecting balance sheet or whatever you risk see. I think that's the first one.
You said the Barclays didn't take any loan, then they are taken the thing from back of England bank or back of England bank. So sorry, back of the spot.
So Barclays is the only bank which did not take any money to come out of the crisis.
Because obvious.
I was there when the market of crash.
I was also there.
Yeah,
We crash.
We crash.
No, market.
Barclay, Lehman crash.
It's a different story.
Yeah. But anyhow, you as a bankers, I'm not talking that to represent the banker, but for that matter, every institution have to keep on making it more attractive or put some more verbiage or usage something or some small, spicy to add it. To call some instrumentals.
No, actually, to be very
effectively
honest,
you are taking deposit and trying you want to pay in a way. But
no, I think the investment bank is totally decoupled, sir. In terms of the ethical part of it, there was also a big cleanup in Barclays. So any business which was even proprietary has been cleaned up because they endorsed to this specifically, and every bank is going in that direction.
What I am saying is the nature of investments.
It is like that.
Keeps on changing because like you put it and could add some more color or add one more feature. You call it an X, you call it.
This is not
This is not okay. This will continue to happen. And
That's why that's what really happening because of yield pickup. So we as a pensioners, everybody has a pension account.
Yeah.
So we have given a lot of money to a pension fund. So they need to invest money somewhere to get more risk-adjusted yield. So this is why all these products come.
Again,
The market is the other way around. In sophisticated Western countries specifically, it's not the product we want to sell. It is more about the product that the investors want to buy. So typically, product development happens the other way around, where sales guys interact with the clients, they come back to the product development team and tell this is what the client is looking for. So can you create something like
Except we have.
No, no, sir, I think it's a reverse inquiry process. What he's saying is generally the people come and tell us, we want this exposure, give me a product. After we give the product, we go and hedge it in the market. It is not that we go and sell a product.
They will download immediately after that. They will download fully.
We are only facilitating client demand.
What I am saying is you analyze the last 10 years. So how many products have come, how much have gone, how much it has taken a shape, how much survived, all these things. So that's what I am saying. It's a continuous evolution. And you have to be relevant to attract people.
I thank the Barclays team for being here. Wonderful interaction. I got a lead of rice Kumar.
Yes.
Use it. Thank you very much.
If for our you have to put 2%, 6%, then difference 4%. It is 1%. He knows. That is the very thing. Because logically that type of question will come and CA and that type of quantity will bring. Easy, 4%. Difference is 4%. In this difference 4%. Deficit you are talking about 0 and 4% of US dollar, 4% 1 year. Sorry, give me a okay, for 3 months, 1% difference. Whenever you wanted to maintain this cash reserve rate, you need not have to borrowing some of the things that the product is also included, you can invest it. That depends upon the economy. For example, if you take Turkey is in different point and other thing, the difference was there, 21%, 22%. Because last year we were having it like Standard Chartered Bank or Chartered Bank. They are this already and also consolidating their balance sheet is no obligation taking you know that inflation accounting you are doing. They are helping to track wages. And also but we are trying to join the inflation is become like that things. If you think mobile phone during the World War II, just the mobile phone when you not mobile phone architecture became a big section see when people that you know this is like that is like from the shipping industry and also where as you are saying you need to bring that is your choice. You made a private airport. There is a difference between technical value also as a principle technical practice. I know technical Congress is bad politics. Okay,
They do activism. They tell you what is wrong. So when they were fighting for elections, they kept saying electricity prices in Delhi are very high. How much have you reduced after you came to power?
Yeah, we can't. So then don't be as his point is you cannot be an activist in power. You can be activist when you are not in power.
See, if you are
power, you have to sort out
very
things.
difficult.
No, it's
Some
the
risk.
point of this there's a risk, social risk. Like if, for example, I buy a financial product, I have all hierarchies. I have a risk, correct? Like a CDS, when you have a CDS on me. Do you value that risk also? Which answer saying that the spreads will cover that, that's all. You want to hear that you consider the risk without considering the risk. A lot of people are getting the outsourcing is we don't have anything in there. This is
I think I did not think
this is some kind of legitimate asset management.
yes.
Very proper
investments.
okay. So you coming from there. Turning one.
Filka.